Chapter 21. Everyone turned back to look at her in a daze. The little stoic pursed her lips and expressionlessly said, "However, it's still unknown who will emerge victorious next time." She had indeed lost this time. She had wasted so much effort to capture these two people, but she was unable to pry anything substantial out of their mouths. That person from the Talisman family was truly a talent. He was an expert at using people and also an expert at wielding power. Presumably, there would naturally be a confrontation in the future. At that time, Arbor silently lowered her eyes. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, she heard Shurchan sneer beside her. "TSK, you can't even rest in peace after death." He pointed over, and a green streak of light flew past Arbor with a whoosh and abruptly landed on a thin and faintly discernible lampwick-shaped fiery red object. After a soft sound, the light wick that couldn't be any fainter twisted slightly in front of everyone, and it instantly disappeared into nothingness. Gung Pengqing's life lamp miniature. Arbor's heart skipped a beat. If Shurchan hadn't acted in time and allowed Gung Pengqing's miniature to bounce back, it would have definitely caused great waves. Shurchan nodded. He could still leave behind a life lamp remnant after self-detonating his spiritual sense. Arbor's resentment toward this person increased. He truly spared no effort to sell his life to his master. He used the last of his essence blood to condense a life lamp remnant. Shurchan sneered. Unfortunately, it fell short at the final stage. Arbor nodded. Her disgust toward Gung Pengqing's disciple had already risen to the peak. "Back then, I seem to have wronged Mu Jingrui," Arbor said indifferently. "I even thought that Mu Jingrui sent Fan Gu to kill me because I refused to return to the Mu family. From the looks of it now, it should be certain that this Fan Gu and Fan Xioha are also two small chess pieces in the hands of the mastermind behind the Mu family." She had lost this time. Although she was somewhat unwilling, a loss was a loss. The future was long, so let's wait and see. After tossing and turning for the better part of the night, everyone was a bit tired. Hence, they silently returned to the inn to continue resting. The next day, everyone woke up rather late. Only when the sun was high in the sky did they come downstairs one by one. Naturally, the little yellow crane did not know what had happened last night. She had been busy with Yunshue's cremation for the past 2 days. With everyone gathered, Fairy Yellow Crane fell silent for a moment before saying, "I plan to return to the main residence." The Ginkgo Fairy's chopsticks paused, and she couldn't help but roll her eyes at her. "I say, miss, are you tired of living? Do you want to throw yourself into a trap and go back to experience a bloody storm? I came out in a hurry that day, so I didn't pack my things." Arbor waved his hand disapprovingly. "Just buy a new one." Fairy Yellow Crane pursed her lips and said hesitantly, "I have 2 very precious handwritten copies of medical books. I was reading them in my room that day and forgot to put them in my inner world." Arbor was stunned and turned to look at her. "I have a few handwritten copies, too. Let me lend them to you." As he spoke, he took out one of Long Chiyun's handwritten copies and tossed it in front of Yellow Crane. Yellow Crane hurriedly and carefully received it. She flipped through 2 pages, and her eyes immediately lit up. After the meal, Yellow Crane held the book and read it as if she was intoxicated, ignoring everyone else. "Jojo, can you lend me this medical book for 2 more days? Oh, where is she?" Chapter 21. When she raised her head, she discovered that Arbor had already left at some point. Jojo said he's lacking some mid-grade medicinal ingredients, so he dragged Mo Lien to the pharmacy to buy them. "Ah," Yellow Crane Fairy asked with a puzzled expression. "Jojo wants to refine pills?" "Amen." The Peony Fairy waved a small red brocade fan, lazily leaning on the armchair. Shaking the fan, she nodded and said, "Jojo seems to be lacking something. What is it called? 3 leaves, 3-leaf clover? Mid-grade medicinal ingredients? 3-leaf flower." Yellow Crane Fairy said with black lines on her forehead. "All right, right, it's that 3-leaf flower." Yellow Crane suddenly stared blankly, excitedly grabbing Peony's hand and shouting, "Sister Peony, could it be that Jojo is refining spirit gathering pills?" Peony was dumbfounded by her question. How could she know what kind of pill Arbor wanted to refine by buying that nuisance three-leaf clover? However, being called sister by Yellow Crane, she was somewhat elated. Thus, she smiled amiably at Yellow Crane and said, "Probably. I'll go take a look." Yellow Crane Fairy immediately jumped up and said with a face full of excitement, Hey, come back, come back." The Peony Fairy hurriedly reached out and grabbed her, pressing her back into the chair. "What are you going to do? The young couple is shopping, and you're going to be a lit candle. If boss sees you, he definitely won't be happy." Yellow Crane Fairy was a bit stunned by what she said. "Kiki, I just want to observe her refining pills and learn from her experience." "Hey, then wait for her to come back." The Peony Fairy rolled her eyes at her. "She can't stay on the street refining pills, right?" "Oh, okay then. Then, Sister Peony, I'll go read first." The dazed Yellow Crane Fairy nodded, then picked up the medical book and read it as if she was intoxicated. The corner of Peony's mouth twitched, and she looked at her speechlessly. An ignorant and incompetent person like her would have a headache whenever she flipped open a book. There was no need to ask her to read books in this lifetime. It was impossible for her to be like Fairy Huang He, who was completely immersed in the medicine encyclopedia. That would be impossible, even in her next life on the other side. Prince Imo and Miss Chiao were strolling on the streets hand in hand, and they turned a blind eye to the gazes of the passers-by. The passers-by were also somewhat amused. A young lad who didn't look where he was walking and only stared at the little stoic actually bumped his head into someone else's shoulder pole. He rubbed his forehead in pain and was about to cry. When she saw a Lian Yuan medicine shop in the distance, Chiao Mu stopped and sniffed. "Lian, I smell a very fragrant radish biscuit." The little thing was hungry. Mo Lian couldn't help but laugh. She raised her hand to stroke the little fellow's head and pointed to the alley next to them. "I'll go and buy it, okay?" Miss Chiao nodded. "Then wait for me at the pharmacy." "Okay." Arbor naturally nodded cheerfully and agreed. After waving goodbye to Mo Lian, the little fellow walked toward Liang Yuan Pharmacy with light steps. This Liang Yuan Pharmacy was located in a troublesome area, so its business was naturally excellent. The pharmacy shopkeeper was a rare person with a conscience. Even when the plants were withering and medicinal herbs were in short supply, he still insisted on not raising the price. As a result, many people from other cities came here especially to buy his medicinal herbs after hearing his reputation. As soon as Arbor walked through the door, a shop assistant immediately walked over with a face full of smiles and enthusiasm. "Hello, customer. Welcome, welcome." Chapter 21-23. When he saw Arbor's face clearly, the shop assistant was obviously stunned, and his attitude became even more respectful. "Miss, are you here to buy medicinal herbs?" Arbor nodded. "Do you have the three-leaf flower?" Yes. The shop assistant nodded repeatedly. "How many do you want, miss?" "I'll take as many as you have," Arbor said indifferently. The shop assistant was immediately overjoyed. This was a big business opportunity. Thus, he hurriedly went to report to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper jogged all the way over, his Method Buddha-like face filled with a kind smile. "Miss, our shop has more than 5,200 three-leaf flowers. 3 spirit coins per flower. Do you want all of them?" The three-leaf flower was only a mid-grade medicinal herb, and 3 spirit coins was already a sky-high price. The shopkeeper was worried that Arbor would find it too expensive, so he added, "If Miss wants all of them at once, we'll round off the change. How about 15,000 spirit coins for Miss?" Arbor nodded. "Sure." The shopkeeper was overjoyed and hurriedly said to her, "Then, Miss, please rest in the shop for a while. I'll instruct someone to bring all the 3-leaf flowers over." Arbor waved her hand. "I'll just walk around. You guys go ahead." The shopkeeper beamed and hurriedly brought the shop assistant to the warehouse in the back hall to prepare the 3-leaf flowers. Selling out all the 3-leaf flowers in a day was quite a big business. After all, mid-grade medicinal herbs like the 3-leaf flower were still commonly seen. Although the world's vegetation was withered, it was not a black-grade or sky-grade medicinal herb, so it was still relatively easy to find. Arbor had nothing to do, so she strolled around the shop. This Liang Yuan medicine shop was quite big, and it was divided into 2 floors. Naturally, the second floor sold some more expensive medicinal herbs. After Miss Chiao walked around the first floor, she went up to the second floor to take a look. All the medicinal herbs on the second floor were listed in transparent crystal display cabinets. Many of them were kept in jade boxes, and their names were marked on them. They would not be easily shown to others unless you were sure that you wanted to buy the medicinal herb. Only then would the shopkeeper take out the jade box for you to see. After all, if every poor person came over and said that they wanted to look at the medicinal herbs and did not buy them after looking at them, the medicinal properties of these precious medicinal herbs would soon dissipate in the air. Arbor wandered in front of the display cabinets a few times, but didn't see anything he wanted. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly noticed a plant with drooping leaves on an ordinary table next to the display case. She hurriedly walked over and circled around the small cabinet, secretly clicking her tongue in wonder. Wasn't this Tian Xingzi? She had seen it in Long Qian's notes. Tian Xingzi liked water and yin, but it had to be planted in water. If it was planted in a soil basin, wouldn't it speed up its death? Tian Xingzi's item was the main ingredient for making mystic-level neurotoxins. This neurotoxin could cause hallucinations to appear before the eyes of any soul master below level 10 after being poisoned. It was as if they were in a dream. After 4 hours, they would die with a slight smile on their face before they died. It was such a waste for such a useful neurotoxin to be thrown into a dirt basin. Miss Chiao circled around Tian Xingzi and raised her eyes to look at a shop assistant standing at the side. She waved at him and said, "Hey, wrap this up for me." "Yo, is this a gift?" A slightly aged female voice came from the side. Arbor turned around and saw a mother and daughter standing in front of the display case diagonally opposite her, looking at her. Chapter 21-24. Both of them looked wealthy and slightly plump. Their clothes were also very exquisite, and it could be seen that they were women from wealthy families. Arbor glanced at them and shook her head. "It's not a gift." The young woman's round face immediately revealed disdain. She stared at the Tian Xingzi with drooping leaves in front of Arbor and said, "This thing's leaves are drooping. It's already rotten." Arbor blinked and glanced at the Tian Xingzi again. She couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the mother and daughter and said to the shop assistant standing awkwardly at the side, "How much?" "Wrap it up." "Uffed." The young woman snickered. She moved closer to her mother and said disdainfully, "Mom, don't be like this in the future. Don't even ask about that kind of trash. If we're going to buy it, we'll buy the best. Don't buy this kind of trash. It's not like our family doesn't have money." That little stoic really looked like an immortal, but the things she did really made people look down on her. That, "Wrap it up. How much?" made her seem like a nouveau riche and bought something extremely precious. It was truly hilarious. It was only a pot of rotten vegetation. The young woman swept Arbor a disdainful glance. Arbor didn't take her contempt seriously. In any case, she knew best whether she had money or not. Why did she have to go around announcing to the world, "I have money. I have money"? She was simply like a moron. It was fine as long as she had a good life. As for what other people thought, what did it have to do with her? If they wanted to despise her, then despise her. She was bored to death. "Miss, this medicinal herb cough, even our shopkeeper doesn't know what it is." The shop assistant scratched his head and said sincerely, "Are you sure you want to buy it? But it doesn't look like it can live for much longer." "It's fine, I'll buy it," Arbor said with a wave of her small hand. "How much?" "This 1 spirit coin is enough." "And all right, buy it." Arbor had the shop assistant wrap up the pot of Tian Xingzi. In reality, she was extremely happy on the inside. Fuck, a pot of neurotoxin's main catalyst was actually sold for 1 spirit coin. This is a kind of black-grade medicinal ingredient, dear. TSK. Looks like I have to study more in the future. Only by studying more can I become cultured. Only by studying more can I not be deceived no matter where I go. The ancients didn't lie to me. The little fellow was secretly smug, but the mother and daughter kept looking at Arbor with strange eyes. The middle-aged woman felt that there was something wrong with the little stoic in front of her. Otherwise, Why would he spend a spirit coin to buy a pot of dying, unknown plants? What a joke. The young woman sneered, her face full of disapproval. Xiang. A man's voice came from the second floor. A young man walked up the stairs and quickly walked to Zhang Wuxiang's side. His face was filled with a doting smile. Those medicinal herbs have been packed. Is there anything else you like? Brother Wu. The young woman shyly took his hand and shook her head with a smile. It's almost done. We bought everything we need. Wu Genie also nodded. His gaze suddenly landed on the little stoic, and for a moment he was dumbstruck as if he had seen a celestial being. Zhang Wuxiang couldn't help glaring angrily at Arbor. She shook Wu Genie's arm and stomped her feet, saying delicately, Brother Wu, what are you looking at? Chapter 21-25. Wu Jin also hurriedly regained his wits and couldn't resist sneaking a peek at the expressionless Arbor. He mumbled with a chuckle, Nothing, nothing. Zhang Wuxiang couldn't help but feel resentful. She was originally a very average-looking woman, and her figure was also slightly plump. Normally, she was the one who chased after Wu Jin. Wu Jin was also the only son of Shuntian Prefecture's influential Heavenly Fortune Sect's faction master. If it weren't for the fact that her family background was comparable to his and that sect master Wu valued their great Source Island's power, their marriage might not have been successful. She hadn't married into the family yet, but Wu Jin had several beautiful handmaidens by his side. Her appearance wasn't beautiful enough, and her figure wasn't graceful enough, so she naturally could only work on other aspects. For example, her pill refinement skills were definitely something that could make people sit up and take notice of her. Even the Wu family's father and son had no choice but to properly flatter her when they needed her help. Brother Wu, let's go. Wu Jin also glanced at the little stoic again and said absent-mindedly, Xiang, didn't you say earlier that you also took a fancy to a medicinal herb on the second floor? What's it called again? I think it's called soul-chasing grass. Zhang Wuxiang said with a smile. It's too expensive. This yellow-grade medicinal herb costs 2,000 spirit coins. I thought about it and decided to pass. Zhang Wuxiang sighed and said, After all, my current pill refinement skills haven't broken through to yellow grade yet. If I fail in refining, it'll be a considerable loss. Let's take a look in 3 months. At that time, my pill refinement skills might have already broken through to yellow grade. Okay. Wu Jin also nodded very happily and said, If Dad knows that your pill refinement skills have broken through to yellow grade alchemist level, he'll definitely be very happy. Zhang Wuxiang nodded non-committally and said with a smile, MHM, I think so too. After saying that, she swept a glance at the little stoic who was still strolling around on the side and involuntarily sneered. So what if she was good-looking? She was still a brainless fellow. A pauper who was only fit to buy junk. When shopping, the little stoic was merely waiting for her dear husband. In any case, she had nothing to do, so she strolled through the second floor again. Zhang Wuxiang saw that Wu Genie's eyes had been involuntarily attracted to them. She couldn't help but mock him coldly. It's useless no matter how many times you walk around. If you don't have money, you still don't have money. Looking at them won't make them yours. Wu Jin was also stunned. He hurriedly pulled Zhang Wuxiang's sleeve and said rather awkwardly, Xiang, others are shopping. It's inconvenient for us to disturb them. Let's go. What are you buying? Zhang Wuxiang sneered mockingly. She spent a long time choosing and only chose a pot of rotten leaves. He had already walked around the second floor 3 times. A pot of rotten leaves for 1 spirit coin. That's all I can buy. When Wu Jin also saw the little stoic's gaze shoot towards him, he couldn't help but feel even more embarrassed. Zhang Wuxiang's mocking face was really ugly. It was other people's business whether they bought or not. Her mocking words were truly meddling in other people's business. Arbor glanced at her in boredom and walked to the side without consulting the shop assistant. She took that pot of Tian Xingzi from him and stored it into her inner world with a wave of her hand. The shop assistant still said rather awkwardly, Miss, once our medicinal ingredients are sold, we don't accept returns. Arbor absent-mindedly glanced at that shop assistant. Chapter 21-26. Was she afraid that she would raise Tian Xingzi to death after returning home? Her heart ached for that one spirit coin, and she would come back to find trouble with their pharmacy? Arbor was baffled. Was she such a senseless person? Even if she did raise him to death, it was just a matter of one spirit coin. Was it worth her making a trip back? Zhang Wuxiang sneered again. The little stoic turned to glance at her and rolled her eyes. Woman, do you have a blocked nose? If you're sick, it's better to treat it as soon as possible. If the nose is blocked, the heat will descend and the lung will descend. It's easy to develop lung disease. If you don't treat a minor illness, you'll suffer from a major illness. Let me give you a word of advice. Treat it properly. Madame Zhang and Zhang Wuxiang were instantly flabbergasted. After reacting for a while, Zhang Wuxiang said angrily, "What did you say? What kind of attitude are you speaking to me with? Do you know who I am? What kind of attitude was this?" Her attitude was too good. "I'm telling you, I'm the third miss of Hanyuan Island. Zhang Wuxiang, you better be careful. A bitch who doesn't filter her mouth won't live long." Arbor creased her brows. Why did the name Hanyuan Island sound a bit familiar? Xiang. Wu Jini hastily pulled back the impulsive and easily angered Zhang Wuxiang and said with a frown, "Stop fooling around." She was buying medicinal herbs for no reason, yet she was being a busybody and provoking her time and time again. Anyone would feel uncomfortable. When Zhang Wuxiang saw that Wu Jini kept speaking up for the little stoic, the fury in her heart swelled. Flustered and exasperated, she flung Wu Jini's hand away and shouted, "Brother Wu, why do you keep speaking up for that bitch? I'm the third miss of Hanyuan Island. She's just a country girl who popped out of nowhere, yet she dares to hoot in front of me. How can I not teach her a lesson? You don't have money, yet you're still pretending to be a big shot. You bought a pot of lousy plants and still think you're nouveau riche." Simply, Zhang Wuxiang's voice suddenly stopped, and her eyes widened as she stared at the man in an ink robe who gradually appeared in front of her at the top of the stairs. Dressed in ink robes, his tall and slender figure, his exquisite features seemed to have stolen the heaven's fortune and could instantly steal another person's breath. Heavens, heavens! How could there be such a handsome man in the world? Compared to the man in the black shirt, Wu Jini, who was standing beside him, was simply too ordinary. If he were to fall into a crowd, he wouldn't even make a splash. Zhang Wuxiang stared fixedly at Immerse. That gaze of hers was as if she wanted to see a hole in his face. She had never seen such a beautiful man in her entire life. His slender and jade-like figure walked over like a flower parting a willow. For a moment, the scenery in front of her seemed to have lost its natural color. All that was left in her eyes was a smiling man. Xiao Mu's gaze landed completely on the packet of carrot pancakes that Immerse was carrying. She ran over with a cheer and hooked her arm around his, asking, "Hubby, why did you take so long to buy them?" She had already walked around the second floor 3 times out of boredom, but this guy was still late. Jojo was not happy. "Oh, I met 2 vicious dogs on the way, so I taught them a lesson. That's why I'm late." Immerse raised his hand and patted the little fellow's head. The 2 of them carried the radish pancakes to the side, as if there was no one else around. They put the radish pancakes on the small cabinet where the Tian Xingzi potted plant was placed. Immerse opened the oiled paper wrapping outside and took out a hot radish pancake. He smiled and handed it to Arbor. "Here, try it." Chapter 21-27. The little fellow opened her mouth and took a small bite. It was hot, and she kept fanning her mouth with her little hand. She nodded and said, "Delicious." Immerse nodded with a smile. Then she also took a bite of the radish pancake. "My efforts were not in vain. The taste is not bad." Suddenly, an ear-piercing voice came from beside him. "Shameless. Xiang." Wu Jin was about to go crazy. In the past, Xiang was not so ignorant. Why was she meddling in other people's business today? That young master Mo, Shan, did not look like someone to be trifled with. Xiang behavior was simply testing the bottom line of his patience. Xiao Mu turned her head to look at her and creased her brows in annoyance. She wrapped up the remaining carrot pancakes again and stuffed them into her inner world before pulling Mo Lian's hand to walk downstairs. "Hubby, let's go." There was no need to talk nonsense with a fool. It was simply a waste of his energy. "Let's wait downstairs. I bought a lot of medicinal herbs." Pfft. A piece of lousy grass worth a spirit coin is called a lot of medicinal herbs. "Xiang Wu Jin impatiently said, "You are too outrageous." "Brother Wu." Zhang Wuxiang did not expect Wu Jin to reprimand her face. Her eyes were filled with tears. She cried out in grievance. "You actually said this about your fiancée for a shameless bitch. You are also bewitched by her, aren't you? Who does she think she is? I'm the third miss of Hongyuan Island. That bitch looks like a vixen. What does she have to compare with me?" "Ah." Mo Lian abruptly turned his head around, and two serene rays shot out from his pair of severe phoenix eyes. She gently waved her left hand, and a mighty palm wind slapped toward Zhang Wuxiang's face. Bam! Ah! Zhang Wuxiang flew out miserably. She staggered and crashed into a display case. Fortunately, the display case was very sturdy, and the crystal layer was quite thick. That was why she didn't break it. However, Zhang Wuxiang felt that her back was about to break. She cried out in pain as she clutched her waist. Wu Jin also hurried over, wanting to pull her up. Who would have thought that she would throw a tantrum on the ground and scream, "Mother, mother, kill her. Kill that bitch for me." The middle-aged woman's face turned green when she saw her daughter suffer such a huge loss. With a leap, he jumped down from the railing on the second floor and landed in the hall on the first floor. A few merchants who were selecting medicinal herbs at the side could not help but be startled by her sudden appearance. When they looked back, they saw an extremely vicious woman standing in the middle of the hall with a face full of resentment, glaring at the beautiful couple in front of her. "Do you want to die?" Mo Lian said coldly. While she was confronting the middle-aged woman, she did not forget to continue feeding the little fellow. "Junior, you sure talk big." The middle-aged woman's eyes flashed with a cold light as she said angrily, "You hurt my daughter, and you want to leave just like that? Madame Zhang, please stop." Wu Jin helped Zhang Wuxiang down the stairs and hastily advised, "This is Lianyuan medicine shop. It's not suitable for fighting." Zhang Wuxiang shrieked harshly, "Mother, kill that bitch, kill that bitch." The little stoic pulled Mo Lian's hand and took a bite of the radish pancake. She looked up at Zhang Wuxiang with a bored expression. She was simply a crazy woman. He didn't know which corner it had jumped out from. Chapter 21-28. How could people's hearts be so twisted? Everyone was here to buy things. So wasn't it good to be polite to each other? Did they have to show off their superiority and trample Jojo under their feet so that they could feel at ease? Madame Zhang felt that after her daughter suffered such a huge loss, she should teach the little stoic a lesson so that these young children wouldn't walk out with their heads held high and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Wait. Lianyuan medicine shop's shopkeeper finally rushed over. He had just finished buying that batch of three-leaf flowers and had his subordinates take inventory when he heard a shop assistant hastily report that someone was causing trouble in the front hall. When he rushed over to take a look, it turned out to be Madame Zhang of Great Source Island who was arguing with the honored customer who bought the three-leaf flowers. The shopkeeper couldn't help but grumble inwardly. Great Source Island had always been on good terms with Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord. The people of Great Source Island had lived in Shuntian Prefecture for a long time, so from the madams to the young masters and misses, they were accustomed to being unreasonable. Now that Zhang Wuxiang was being taught a lesson by someone else, how could Madame Zhang take it lying down? This matter wasn't easy to mediate, and it might even bring disaster to the innocent bystanders. The shopkeeper hastily signaled the shop assistant next to him with his eyes and secretly instructed him to hurry out and ask for help. Meanwhile, he hastily stepped forward and stood in front of the little stoic and Zhang Wuxiang. He said to Madame Zhang with a fawning smile, "This old one didn't know Madame was coming. Please forgive me for not coming out to meet you." "Shopkeeper, this has nothing to do with you. Move aside." Madame Zhang's tone was very stiff and arrogant. But the shopkeeper still stood in front of Arbor and shook his head with a fawning smile. This young lady bought many things from my shop. She's our store's honored customer, so I can't let anything happen to our honored customer in the shop. Bullshit! Zhang Wuxiang shrieked rudely and unreasonably. What bullshit, honored customer? Are you trying to coax a 3-year-old child? Didn't this little bitch just spend 1 spirit coin to buy a pot of lousy flowers? Shopkeeper Chio, don't forget that our great source island buys medicinal ingredients worth tens of thousands of spirit coins from your shop every year. Don't lose a watermelon for a sesame seed and offend our entire great source island for a pauper. Don't lose more than you gain. Shopkeeper Chio. Zhang Wuxiang placed her hand on her waist and shouted with a haughty expression on her face. Mrs. Zhang also nodded. That's right. Shopkeeper Chio, you should consider what you should do. Shopkeeper Chio was dumbfounded. What spirit coin? He thought for a moment and hurriedly said, this little girl just ordered all the 3 leaf flowers here and spent 15,000 spirit coins. What? Mrs. Zhang, Zhang Wuxiang, and Wu Jin were all stunned. They turned around and looked at Arbor in disbelief. How is this possible? Zhang Wuxiang immediately screamed, her expression completely unable to accept it. I just saw her walk around the 2nd floor 3 times and pick up a pot of rotten flowers. 15,000 spirit coins? Shopkeeper, who are you trying to fool? Shopkeeper Chio's face was filled with confusion. What benefit would I get from lying to you? That's the truth. Shopkeeper, there's no need to talk nonsense with a retard. Come and pay the bill. Ah, good. Good Mississippi. Shopkeeper Chio hastily plastered on a smile and walked toward Xiao Mu. Zhang Wuxiang's expression was completely distorted. She was in disbelief. How was this possible? Just now, she had asked the shopkeeper if he wanted to do business with Hanyuan Island, but now she was surprised. Chapter 21-29. In the end, a year's worth of orders from Hanyuan Island couldn't even compare to the girl's daily expenses. Wasn't this a slap to her face? She was completely trampling on her face, ruthlessly trampling on it like mud. Zhang Wuxiang was so angry that her entire body couldn't stop trembling. Her gaze was like a twisted viper as she stared at Arbor. If she could, she really wanted to transform into a python and swallow this bitch alive. Zhang Wuxiang only felt that she had never been so humiliated in front of others in her 32 years of life as a noble lady. Arbor's calm gaze made her deeply feel that she saw a trace of disdain in his eyes. It was as if that stoic face didn't care about Hanyuan Island at all. Zhang Wuxiang clenched her fists, and her bones creaked. Madame Zhang's expression was also very awkward as she stared at Arbor, not knowing how to react. Arbor had already walked to the counter with shopkeeper Chio to settle the bill. After settling the bill of 15,000 spirit coins, the shopkeeper was also very embarrassed. His deceitful shop assistant even took a spirit coin from this esteemed guest for that pot of lousy flowers just now. It was really too deceitful. Hence, shopkeeper Chio took out several stalks of intermediate-level medicinal herbs as compensation for Xiao Mu, apologizing profusely. Arbor naturally didn't care. In fact, that Tian Xingzi really wasn't a trash herb. It was scary to be uncultured. Arbor looked at shopkeeper Chio with a strange gaze and reached out to put all the 3-leaf flowers on the ground into his inner world. Then, he nodded and said, "Okay, you don't have to send me off." "Mother," Zhang Wuxiang said angrily, "could it be that you're not willing to stand up for your daughter after seeing her suffer such a big loss?" At this moment, Madame Zhang was a bit hesitant. There weren't many rich people who could take out 15,000 spirit coins in one go in the Shuntian prefecture. Madame Zhang didn't believe that this girl didn't have any background or status. However, it was a fact that her daughter suffered a loss. If she let the young couple leave like this, Madame Zhang would feel suffocated and couldn't swallow it. Wu Jin could not help but feel a headache coming on and whispered to Zhang Wuxiang, "Wuxiang, don't make trouble anymore. Since this young lady can take out 15,000 spirit coins to buy such a large amount of medicinal herbs, she can't be an ordinary person. If this continues, it won't do us any good." Zhang Wuxiang clenched her teeth and shouted, "Brother Wu, don't tell me you really like that vixen?" Why was he speaking up for her again and again? So what if he had 15,000 spirit coins? It's not like our Zhang clan doesn't have that many spirit coins. What's it to be proud of? After saying that, she put one hand on her waist and said sternly, "If you have the ability, then buy all the medicinal herbs in the entire Liang Yuan medicine store." A few merchants in the hall were huddled in the corner, pointing at Zhang Wuxiang and whispering among themselves. "This girl is too rude and unreasonable." "That's right. Why do you keep making things difficult for a little girl?" "He looks ordinary, but now that he's distorted, he looks even more terrifying." Zhang Wuxiang was furious. She turned her head and screamed, "What did you say? Why do you need to buy this Liang Yuan medicine store? Giving all of them to my Qiao Qiao is also fine." A laughter came from afar into everyone's ears. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but be taken aback. They all looked in the direction of the door. Chapter 21:30. A handsome man in a purple robe entered the door. The moment he entered, he winked at Arbor and said with a grin, "Jojo." Arbor couldn't help but be startled. The person who suddenly entered was actually Ding Yun, young Master Ding. This business of his was really spread all over Shuntian Prefecture, and Mo Yin couldn't help but be amused by him. The cult master of the demonic sect is quite leisurely and refined. This business is quite diverse, from medicine to food to underground fighting arenas. They really have everything you need. Well said, well said. Ding Yun deliberately angered Mo Yin. He tilted his head at him and cupped his hand smugly. "Jojo, my shop, inside and out, up and down. If you like anything, just take it away." Arbor was expressionless. The shopkeeper wiped his sweat at the side and bowed obsequiously. "Young master." Ding Yin opened a golden fan with a swish and waved it in his hand as he turned to look at the shopkeeper. "Shopkeeper Chiu, what's going on? Someone informed me that someone is smashing things in the shop." Shopkeeper Chiu hurriedly wiped his sweat again and nodded. "This is just a misunderstanding. Don't worry, young master. It's fine now." "Misunderstanding?" Young Master Ding snorted. His gaze swept across Madame Zhang and her daughter's faces. He waved his fan and asked, "Were they the ones looking for trouble?" Madame Zhang's face instantly turned the color of pig liver. "What have I usually taught you? Although we're a small business and must be kind to make money, there's no need to be too polite to some unreasonable people. Just chase them out." The shopkeeper couldn't help but wipe his cold sweat. He nodded with an emaciated expression and glanced at his young master. Sigh. He didn't know what was wrong with this young master today. He didn't believe that his young master didn't know the identities of Madame Zhang and Madame Zhang. He probably already investigated them on the way here. "All right, let's get rid of the irrelevant people. A cheap medicine shop like ours won't run out of business." Ding Yun waved his hand and said, "There's no need to compromise with those who are looking for trouble." Madame Zhang was so angry that her nose twitched slightly. Zhang Wuxiang was also trembling all over. The handsome, purple-clothed young master in front of them was naturally very good-looking, but the way he spoke and the way he looked at them with disdain was something that the mother and daughter of the Zhang clan could not accept. "How dare you?" Madame Zhang shouted. Her face turned red instantly. Zhang Wuxiang's entire body was trembling. She pointed at Ding Yun and shrieked, "How can you chase a guest out? Your pharmacy. Do you not plan to mingle in Shuntian Prefecture in the future?" Ding Yun coldly glanced at the woman. "Scram before I lose my temper." Zhang Wuxiang shrieked, and the jealousy in her heart surged forth. She pointed at the little stoic who was standing to the side nibbling on a radish pancake, and shrieked as if she had lost all reason. "Shameless thing! If it weren't for you, how could we possibly be chased out by someone?" As soon as she finished speaking, Ding Yun swept Zhang Wuxiang with his sleeve, and she felt a powerful force press against her chest. She spat out a mouthful of blood with a puff and was sent flying toward the shelf behind her. Hey! The shopkeeper was about to die from fright. He hurriedly threw out a rope to hold Zhang Wuxiang's body, preventing her from heavily crashing into the medicine cabinet behind her. Otherwise, the whole cabinet of medicinal herbs would probably suffer calamity. Chapter 21:31. A cough. Zhang Wuxiang reached out to touch the traces of blood on the side of her lips and shrieked, You actually dared to lay your hands on me." She was so angry that she was like a little white flower withering in the wind. She swayed and swayed, shaking so much that her eyeballs were about to fall to the ground. Arbor swallowed a mouthful of the radish pancake and looked at the girl with a blank expression. She didn't understand how she could be so magnanimous. She shook her head and said in a cold voice, "Being too angry is harmful to the body. It affects the spleen, stomach, and liver fire. It's really unwise. If you're sick, you still have to be treated as soon as possible. Otherwise, if it drags on for too long, there won't be any way to reverse the situation." Everyone, Yin couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he raised his hand to rub his wifey's head. Why did it feel so funny? While others were half dead from anger, this little fellow started for medical knowledge and expressionlessly reminded others to pay attention to their health. Her explanation was really clear and logical. At least, she could scare many laymen into a daze. Young Master Ding couldn't help but laugh out loud. He floated to Arbor's side and looked at her with a smile. "Jojo, I'll give you all the medicinal herbs in the shop." The shopkeeper fell to the ground with a bang. "Oh my, his young master. Is there anyone who squanders like you? With such a squandering method, no matter how much money you have, it won't be enough for you to squander." "No need." Yin held his wifey's left hand tightly. He lowered his other hand by half an inch and flipped his palm downwards. Immediately, a crisp ding-ding-dang-dang sound was heard. Pieces of spirit coins flowed from his fingers like a gurgling stream, sliding down endlessly. The ding-ding-dang-dang-dang sound lasted for about half an incense stick's time. At this time, the floor of the lobby was already covered with a thick layer of spirit coins. Everyone! Exclamation point. They stared at him dumbstruck for a long time, so long that they almost didn't know what to say. The coins were still flowing out endlessly, flowing over everyone's feet and gradually overflowing to their calves. Zhang Wuxiang, who was lying on the ground, was completely shocked by the Crown Prince's actions. She could only push the spirit coins away with all her might to prevent herself from being completely buried under the pile of spirit coins. Madame Zhang's expression was even more hilarious. She opened her mouth wide and stared blankly at Yin, as if she wanted to see a flower in her face. Her gaze wandered up and down, as if she was looking at a monster from another planet. Young Master Ding gloomily stared at Prince Mo in front of him. His gloominess turned to viciousness, and then to anger. Enough! This damn man, was he trying to use money to kill him? Enough! Seeing that the Crown Prince had no intention of stopping, young Master Ding roared angrily. "It's already enough to pay for all the medicinal herbs." Everyone stared at Tycoon Lien with a dumbfounded expression. They never thought that they would be able to see such a marvelous scene in a shop in their lifetime. He spent a lot of money to buy all the medicinal herbs on both the upper and lower floors for his wife. Was he still human? Was this something a human could do? Everyone's minds were muddled, and their faces were also dazed. They kept feeling that if they let this young master continue being extravagant, their hearts would definitely not be able to take it. Arbor blinked and lowered his head to look at the spirit coins that flowed to his calves. She moved her small feet and kicked the spirit coins on her feet to the side. Chapter 21:32. Xiaomu looked up at her dear husband and asked in bewilderment, "Hubby, what are you doing?" "Give them all to Jojo." Yin lowered her head and said to her. With a strange expression, Arbor looked at the spirit coins on the ground, then looked up at young Master Ding, whose face was green with dog poop. "I don't want them." Everyone, oh my god, this couple was so willful. Not only did he spend such a large amount of spirit coins to buy all the medicinal herbs, but he also scared everyone present so much that they almost couldn't breathe. The other one was even more ruthless. She actually said she didn't want them. "What?" Yin raised her hand and patted the little fellow's head. "Don't you like medicinal herbs the most?" "There are too many. I can't put them all," Arbor quickly said. She had planted all kinds of medicinal herbs in her herb garden on Paradise Planet. Now that she had bought such a large batch of miscellaneous medicinal herbs, where should she put them? It's okay. You can put them in the talisman. If you don't like them, you can throw them away. Prince Imo reached out and hugged her. Then, he turned his head, his expression changing very skillfully. In the blink of an eye, the gentle young sir turned into the lofty-crowned Prince Imo with a dark and gloomy face. What are you spacing out for? Go get the medicinal herbs. Ah, yes, 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 yes. The shopkeeper of the herb shop felt like he was going crazy. In his heart, he was definitely cursing. Where did these two weirdos come from? The two masters were fighting. Couldn't they take into consideration the feelings of the commoners? Could they not be so fierce? Arbor could only sigh helplessly and said to the little water child in the depths of her conscience, Dien Dien, are all men so childish? The little water child hurriedly said, Master, you're right. Men like to fight fiercely. They're not cute at all, are they? Arbor nodded. She couldn't help but ask, do you think you'll take the form of a man or a woman after you transform? You'd better transform into a girl. It's less annoying. The little water child. Master, I'm sorry to disappoint you. The little water baby ran away in tears. She didn't think too much about it when the water baby suddenly stopped talking. She just thought that the water baby had gone to do something else. Arbor kicked the spirit coins under his feet and followed shopkeeper Chio for a few steps. Then he sighed and said, Don't bother. I'll take it myself. With so many medicinal ingredients, he could only store them in his storage talisman. His inner world simply couldn't hold them all. Furthermore, one storage talisman was not enough. 10 empty blue storage talismans floated out from Xiao Mu's side and swept towards the items inside the hall with a swish. The other 10 flew directly to the second floor. Not long after, shopkeeper Chio ran down the stairs with a strange expression on his face. He looked at the expressionless little stoic, then looked at his young master's dark face. Cough, miss, hey you took away all the display cases and medicine cabinets. This crazy girl didn't even leave them a single strand of hair. At this moment, there was nothing but the 4 walls upstairs and downstairs. Even the candlesticks and vases in the corner were taken away by the young lady. Everyone, why did they feel like the young lady was a swindler? If I didn't take them away, how could I store the medicinal ingredients? Could it be that I'm going to take them all in a mess? Arbor retorted angrily. Besides, can your cabinets and lamps be more expensive than the medicinal ingredients? I even bought the medicinal ingredients. Why can't I take something else? Chapter 21:33. Everyone, Prince Imo turned his head and saw his wife's expression change instantly. He chuckled and praised his wife repeatedly. Right. If it's not enough, I'll just add more money. Everyone, they vaguely knew where this girl's temperament came from. No, the shopkeeper still wanted to argue for a few more words, but after being glared at by young Master Ding, he immediately fell silent and lowered his head. Boo-hoo, it was hard to be a shopkeeper these days. It was even harder to deal with such a willful young master. The mother and daughter of the Zhang family were completely silent now, and they didn't want to say anything. What should they say? They would be laughed at no matter what they said. Just now, they were still mocking others for being poor and only taking a lousy herb worth 1 spirit coin. Ms. Zhang even mocked others with a condescending expression, as if it was a crime for poor people to go shopping. But now, he had been slapped in the face so hard that he didn't want to be slapped. Wu Genie also felt extremely embarrassed. He glanced at Prince Imo, who had a spring breeze on his face, and then looked at young Master Ding, who had a gloomy expression and a face as black as the bottom of a pot. He cleared his throat and couldn't help but say, Madame Zhang Xiang, I think we should go back first. Zhang Wuxiang felt that she had lost so much face in front of others. At this time, she was so embarrassed that she couldn't even raise her head. When she heard Wu Genie's voice, she simply couldn't vent her anger. Look at her stoic-faced husband. If he didn't make a move, she would have thought he was a pretty boy. Once he made a move, she knew he was a tycoon who doted on his wife. Then she compared him to this cowardly and mediocre fiancé beside her. There was no comparison at all. She angrily brushed away Wu Genie's hand. Go away. Xiang. Madame Zhang glared at Zhang Wuxiang warningly. Don't make trouble again. At this moment, she could tell that Mo Yin's identity was definitely not ordinary. There weren't such outstanding young masters everywhere in the world, and it was even more impossible to randomly pick a tycoon who could give away tens of millions of spirit coins. Therefore, the most important thing now was to leave quickly so that they wouldn't be taken advantage of again. Mother! Zhang Wuxiang's heart was filled with unwillingness. She reached out and pounded the pile of spirit coins on the ground. The spirit coin bounced up and almost flew into her face. She was so angry that her ordinary face was completely distorted. She was ridiculed and humiliated like this, and, at the same time, she was beaten up like a dog by two men. Her mother and fiancé actually turned a blind eye to it, and didn't help her at all, especially her fiancé. He was simply a good-for-nothing donkey. Xiang. Madame Zhang rebuked angrily. Wu Jin hurriedly reached out to help Zhang Wuxiang up and whispered to her, These people are not ordinary people. Let's return to the residence first and investigate their identities before we make further plans. Zhang Wuxiang gritted her teeth and glared at Wu Genie hatefully. Suddenly, a dozen or so servants rushed in from the medicine shop's entrance. The sound of rolling iron wheelchairs followed. Why are you here? Zhang Wuxiang stared at the wheelchair that came in through the door, a trace of disgust in her eyes. Madame Zhang reached out and lightly patted Zhang Wuxiang's head. How can you talk to your second brother like that? Along with the wheelchair came a young man with a gloomy face. He pointed in Mo Yin's direction and said sternly, Come, arrest this man. Chapter 21:34. Mo Yin faintly swept the two people at the door with impatience in her eyes. She lowered her head to glance at Arbor and said, It's those two damn dogs that your husband taught a lesson just now. How dare they come looking for trouble now? Why are you all still in a daze, you all? The gloomy-faced young man paused and abruptly widened his eyes at Arbor. He cried out involuntarily, Why is it you? Xiaomu looked at him blankly and sized him up from head to toe. He had no impression at all. Had he ever seen such an average-looking third-rate man? Who are you? Arbor asked loudly. Everyone, why the heck did they feel that when the little stoic asked this question, the young man in the wheelchair's face was so contorted that it was about to crack? Bitch, you dare to do it, but don't dare to admit it. Before the gloomy-faced young man could speak again, the young man in the wheelchair was the first to be unable to restrain himself from slapping the armrest and shrieking. Madame Zhang hastily walked toward the wheelchair and consoled. Danner, what happened? Don't get agitated. If there's anything, tell your mother. It's this bitch. It's her. She's the one who threw me into the water and fed me to the sharks, causing both my legs to be torn off by the sharks. When Madame Zhang heard this, she couldn't stop trembling all over. Her eyes were like a viper's as she stared sharply at Arbor. The venom in her eyes seemed to be about to flow out in substance. You're not mistaken? It's really this bitch? Madame Zhang asked harshly. Zhang Wudong hammered his thigh and cried involuntarily, Mother, it's her. Even if this little bitch turns into ashes, I won't forget her. It's her. She caused this child to be amputated from the knees down. I can't. Zhang Wudong looked like he found it hard to speak, and all the men present instantly understood. Fuck, this guy couldn't be so miserable that he fed his penis to the sharks after entering the water. Right, this was too tragic. Everyone looked at the little girl with the stoic face as if they were looking at a weirdo. The stoic woman still wore a perplexed expression. She raised her head to look at her husband, then at young Master Ding. Finally, she looked at Madame Zhang, who was gnashing her teeth in extreme resentment, and Zhang Wudong, whose expression was contorted beyond control. Who are you? Everyone was speechless. What could be worse than remembering someone in your heart? But that person didn't know you at all. Emolian almost laughed out loud. When his little miss was young, she wasn't even familiar with Duan Yu's celestial appearance. If it weren't for Duan Yu, that guy, running around in front of her all the time, her face blindness would probably have flared up and she wouldn't have recognized him at all. Speaking of which, even Yas, the handsome eagle of the grasslands, didn't recognize the little guy. Trying to make the little stoic remember this average-looking Zhang Wudong without any distinguishing features was truly a bit too much. If Qi Xian, Duan Mu Qing, and the others weren't in closed-door cultivation, they would definitely die of laughter from the little stoic. Unexpectedly, the little stoic actually didn't even remember the events of the past few months. She had encountered this Zhang Wudong when she and her team were heading to Poland Prefecture on a ship. The man standing there with a gloomy expression was Shuntian Prefecture's chief manager's son, Typhone. The one sitting in the wheelchair was Great Source Island's second young master, Zhang Wudong. At that time, the little stoic and the others had ruthlessly taught them a lesson on the deck of the ship. Chapter 2135. The little stoic even ordered people to throw the two of them into the sea to feed the sharks. In the end, due to the ship's accident, they were transferred to Crimson Firmament Blue Wave ship, and the matter of these two people was left unsettled. At that time, the little stoic even muttered a few sentences, thinking that Zhang Wudong, who had lost her legs, had long been buried in the belly of the fish at the bottom of the sea. Unexpectedly, she was still alive and well. The Zhang family mother and daughter she encountered this time were Zhang Wudong's mother and younger sister. It had to be said that her ill-fated relationship with the Zhang family truly couldn't be severed. Unfortunately, the stoic already had no impression of Zhang Wudong. At this moment, Zhang Wudong was sitting in a wheelchair and staring intently at the little stoic. She couldn't stop trembling all over. You don't remember me?" Arbor shook his small head. Zhang Wudong shouted harshly. "I'm the person you threw off the ship. You vicious bitch, ah." He watched as a cluster of purple flames rushed towards his face at lightning speed. Madame Zhang, who was standing in front of her son, calmly took out a mirror from her conscience. She abruptly enlarged it and placed it in front of the mother and son, blocking the attack of the purple flame. "Insolence!" Madame Zhang shrieked harshly. "Are you bullying our Great Source Island because there's no one left? You've been pressuring us time and time again. Do you want to become enemies with the entire Great Source Island?" Madame Zhang sneered and looked up at Immerse. "Young one, I advise you not to test Great Source Island's bottom line time and time again. I'm also advising you to have your son clean his mouth. If I hear him insult my wife again, I'll have him die." Immerse flicked his sleeve coldly as he stared at the middle-aged woman before him with an incomparably frigid expression. For some reason, the woman felt her entire body tremble, and a twisted light surfaced in her eyes. She abruptly dashed to grab Arbor's arm. "This bitch injured my son to this extent. I want her to stay by my Dan-er's side for the rest of her life and serve him well. This little bitch injured my son to this extent, so shouldn't she compensate him? My son's entire life was ruined by her, so she should use the rest of her life to compensate my son. Go to hell." Immerse's eyes hardened. She threw out a dragon-shaped purple flame, which rushed towards Madame Zhang's chest. What a shameless bitch. How dare he try to steal his wife? There was no need for this woman to exist anymore. He had to send her on her way today. However, Madame Zhang was not afraid at all. She took his attack head-on and was not injured at all. On the contrary, Typhone, who was standing beside Zhang Wudong, seemed to have been hit in the chest by a heavy blow. He howled as he flew out of the door and landed heavily on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Immerse and Xiao Mu were taken aback at the same time. Madame Zhang took advantage of the moment when the two of them were stunned and placed her cold, snake-like fingers on Arbor's pulse. However, she didn't expect that it was as if she had landed her hand on a sturdy piece of jade. She didn't manage to seize Xiao Mu's pulse at all, and instead, Immerse, who had reacted swiftly, kicked her left leg. Abruptly, a slender dark moon appeared in his hand, and he ruthlessly pierced it through her heart. "Ah!" Tai Feng's blood-curdling scream came from outside the door. Immerse's expression froze. She heard young Master Ding's anxious voice. Could it be that this bitch used a substitute talisman? "Be careful. Yin was just about to carry his wife up and back away when just then she felt her tentacles touch a barrier. The barrier completely separated the two of them. Chapter 21:36. Madame Zhang looked at Arbor strangely and coldly said, "Little slut, let's see who can save you today." Saying this, she suddenly flipped her hand and placed a green seed in the palm of her hand. Arbor looked at the seed, and for some reason, her eyebrows twitched. An indescribable sense of familiarity welled up in her heart. Madame Zhang used her spiritual energy to stimulate the seed, and the seed surged up at a terrifying speed. Countless green vines with barbs swung at Arbor. Arbor didn't know that a wood spirit master had such a unique skill, stimulating a seed to attack. Unless the seed itself was strong enough, it was just a move that couldn't put out a nearby fire. Xiao Mu's expression chilled, and she abruptly shifted backwards, dodging several green vines' attacks. The place she was trapped in was surrounded by walls on all sides. The area was very narrow, and the green vine tentacles could wrap around her. Twice, she was almost hooked by the barbs. Arbor coldly looked at the middle-aged woman standing in front of her with a sinister smile. "Although your substitution charm is quite strong, it's far from enough." Arbor sneered at her. Then, without another word, she directly summoned the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron in front of the woman and fiercely slammed it against the wall. Boom! Gagaga! Bang! The 4 walls couldn't withstand a single blow and instantly collapsed. The defensive artifact in front of Madame Zhang's chest also shattered into pieces, turning into fine powder that disappeared into the air. "Ah!" Madame Zhang screamed. On the other side, Yin had already rushed over. Her handsome face was calm, and dark moon flung at her face like lightning. Madame Zhang hurriedly used more spiritual energy to stimulate the seed. The seed extended countless branches and crazily swung in all directions, shattering a wall of Liang Yuan medicine shop. The branch pierced through the shop and entered the cloth shop next door. The shopkeeper screamed and fled with his customers into the street. At this time, most of the people in the pharmacy had also fled. They had fled far away, but they stayed on the street out of curiosity. Many pairs of eyes looked towards Liang Yuan Pharmacy. Madame Zhang seemed to have gone completely crazy. The seed was embedded in her palm, and while it was constantly absorbing spiritual energy, it was more like it was absorbing her flesh and spirit meridians. Xiao Mu glanced at this crazy woman and said coldly, "Take this move of mine." As soon as he finished speaking, he threw out the small cauldron in his hand. It turned into a flowing light in midair and turned into a huge object, pressing down on Madame Zhang's head. Madame Zhang was so frightened that her liver and guts turned cold. She scrambled to the ground, rolled to the side, and dodged the attack. Just as he collapsed to the ground, he felt the medicinal cauldron heavily smashing into the ground, crushing countless green vines. This pressure seemed to be pressing on her bones and blood, as if the left side of her body was completely crushed and fractured. Madame Zhang's sharp voice floated above the medicine shop. Zhang Wudan, who was sitting at the door, saw that the situation was not good. He hurriedly pushed his wheelchair to escape. However, there was a small threshold at the door. When he came in, it was naturally Typhoon who pushed him in. When he went out, he was in a panic and couldn't escape immediately. Zhang Wudan used all his strength to push the wheelchair and helplessly looked at Zhang Wuxiang. Chapter 21:37. Zhang Wuxiang was also scared out of her wits. She didn't even look at her second brother and immediately ran out of the shop. Wu Jini didn't have any feelings for Zhang Wudan. His biological sister didn't even want to save his second brother, so why should he waste his energy? Therefore, he quickly followed Zhang Wuxiang out of the shop. He originally planned to run back to the Heavenly Fortune sect to get reinforcements, but he stopped halfway and thought to himself, those young men and women are so powerful. Even if I go back to get reinforcements now, I'll just be giving away my sect members' lives in vain. It'll be completely useless. Then, He dismissed the idea and looked back at Zhang Wuxiang, who was standing at the entrance of the shop and trembling with fear. This girl was too proud and always thought that Great Source Island was invincible. She didn't expect that there were countless people with profound cultivation in the world. Not everyone would give face to Great Source Island. Zhang Wudan looked on in confusion as his sister and brother-in-law ran out of the shop, ignoring him. He opened his mouth to call out, but no sound came out. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He trembled and tried to push the wheelchair with all his strength, but the wheelchair refused to budge. In the end, it fell on the door sill and couldn't move up or down. "Where do you think you're going?" A cold voice came from the back of his head. Suddenly, Zhang Wudan was pulled out of the wheelchair by a circle of wood spirits. It was as if he was being pulled by an invisible force. He flew out of the wheelchair and fell heavily at Ding Yun's feet. Zhang Wudan turned pale with fright as he looked at the young master who was looking at him coldly, with drooping eyebrows. Then he hurriedly turned his head to look at his mother, who was wrapped in green vines, and screamed, "Mother, mother, save me, save me, Dan." Madame Zhang revealed her face from the green vines. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws and wanted to go forward, but she felt powerless. It was as if her body was completely out of her control. The seed was buried in her blood and bones, and it was firmly absorbing her blood, bones, and strength. Could it be that her soul would be stolen by the seed? When Madame Zhang thought of this, her body couldn't help but tremble slightly. "Mother, mother, save me. Mother, please save me." Zhang Wudan could feel that the wood spirit energy around her neck was getting tighter and tighter. Her snot, tears, and saliva flowed down together. He begged for mercy and looked pleadingly at Ding Yun, who had a cold expression on his face. He didn't want to die. He didn't want to die. If he had known earlier, he would not have provoked this demoness. Every time he provoked this demoness, he would always be in big trouble. The first time he lost his legs, this time he might lose his life. I regret it so much. Zhang Wudan wept bitterly and wished for nothing more than to kowtow to Ding Yun. "Let me go, all right? I won't dare to cause trouble for this young lady again." "Kacha, why that crisp sound sounds so familiar?" It was the sound of his neck breaking. He was dead. His neck had been broken by the wood's spiritual energy. "Danner!" Madame Zhang, who was wrapped in vines, let out a bitter and hateful scream. The vines around her surged wildly, as if they wanted to inject endless vitality into the cauldron. Arbor frowned and picked up the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron. Emolian leapt to Arbor's side and held her by the waist. She looked over with a frown. Chapter 21:38. "Looks like this woman's soul has been stolen by that strange seed," Emolian said after a moment's thought. "Master, I can sense Qiuqiu's aura from that seed," Little Water Dindian suddenly said. Bang! A transparent water child squatted on Arbor's shoulder and glared at that strange vine. "You were right, Master." After coming out, the feeling became even stronger. "This is a fragment of a holy wood seed." Arbor! Exclamation point. "What do you mean?" Miss Qiao caught the word holy wood. "You mean that Qiuqiu really isn't an ordinary little tree, but one of the 5 spirit origins, the holy wood?" The water child looked at Arbor in shock and asked in shock, "Master, you don't know?" Arbor's face was expressionless as he slapped the water child's head and retorted, "What do you think your master doesn't know? How can I not know?" In fact, she had only suspected it before, but today she was sure that Qiuqiu really was one of the 5 spirit origins, the holy wood. Then just now you... She looked extremely shocked. "What did I say just now?" Arbor snapped. "I didn't say anything." Emolian couldn't help but laugh. The little fellow's bad habit of being stubborn and refusing to admit his mistakes resurfaced again. Miss Qiao's current state of mind was naturally, "Damn, Qiuqiu, why didn't you tell me that it wasn't an ordinary piece of wood? It's the most powerful holy wood in the world? You did it on purpose, right?" Fortunately, Qiuqiu was in seclusion right now. Otherwise, Miss Qiao would probably drag him out and beat him up. Master used to call it little tree, little tree, little tree. Could it be that you didn't think it was a holy wood at all? It had to be said that the water child was telling the truth. But would his master really admit that he was uncultured just like that? Impossible, Arbor retorted exasperatedly. Do you think I'm stupid? Chocho was blessed by the heavens and formed its own star domain. Naturally, it's extraordinary and completely different from ordinary wood. In the blink of an eye, he saw Ding Yin tossing Zhang Wudon's corpse aside and walking over. Arbor then shut up and never mentioned the sapling again. The water baby also disappeared from her shoulder. The two of them used their telegnosis abilities to talk to each other. How do I subdue it? Did you just say that this is Chocho's seed fragment? What does that mean? Master, you don't know? The little water baby asked blankly. Chocho was once seriously injured. At that time, it was on the verge of breaking apart. The entire tree had exploded. Although the main body survived, it should only be half a piece of deadwood at that time. Arbor's heart skipped a beat. It was as if the endless void flashed before his eyes. A piece of deadwood and a small white figure drifted together for many years. Tears welled up at her eyes. Master Silver, if we can absorb this seed fragment, then the little tree will definitely wake up tomorrow. What should we do? Arbor's spirit was lifted. Master Silver, jump in. The little water baby said solemnly. Jump into that circle wrapped in vines. That tree is causing trouble right now, but in essence, it won't hurt you. Arbor clenched her small fists tightly. All right, Jojo, what are you doing? Mo Yin saw that she didn't speak for a long time and knew that she was communicating with the little water baby through her telegnosis. She didn't disturb them. Chapter 2139. But now, seeing her pause in her steps, as if she was about to rush toward the vines, he subconsciously grabbed her small hand tightly. Lien, trust me. Arbor turned to look at him. Mo Lien's heart skipped a beat. He felt that her eyes were especially bright and dazzling at this moment, like a ball of fire that illuminated the entire shack. It made him feel that there was no way such a cute girl could exist in this world. All right, Mo Lien loosened his grip on the little girl's hand slightly. He naturally trusted her. When he saw her separated by the barrier just now, he didn't panic at all, because he knew that she didn't need to hide under anyone's wings and be provided for like a quail. She was a little girl who could fly side by side with him. She would definitely be able to deal with all the dangers and difficulties. Letting go at the right time and allowing her to grow up quickly was the best way to protect and love her. Miss Qiao smiled at Prince Imo, her eyes extremely bright. Her stoic face suddenly revealed a smile that was as if ice and snow had melted and spring had returned to the earth. Prince Imo was instantly entranced by it. Young Master Ding, who was standing at the side, looked at them with an uncertain expression. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't jealous. There was always a special aura between these two, as if even a nail couldn't penetrate it. At the same time that it made people envious, they couldn't help secretly feeling jealous. Arbor quickly ran to Madame Zhang's side, who was wrapped in vines. Seeing this, Ding Yun's face darkened. He flashed to Mo Lien's side and couldn't help but angrily rebuke. You're just going to watch her die like this? Wasn't that tree a bit strange? Madame Zhang's cultivation wasn't low, but she was still taken in by the tree as a vessel. Now that her soul had been seized by the tree, her bones, blood, and strength had all turned into nourishment for the tree. Even so, Mo Lien was still willing to let the little girl come into close contact with the tree. Wasn't he worried or afraid? Mo Lien didn't really want to pay attention to him. He only glanced at him indifferently and said coldly, My wife doesn't need an outsider like you to worry about her. Huh, young Master Ding sneered. Do you think I want to worry about it? If it weren't for... Ding Yin lowered his eyes and bit his thin lips. If you hadn't met Xiao Qiao before I did, I don't know whose turn it would be to say, my wife doesn't need outsiders to worry about her. Mo Lien seemed to have read his mind. She glared at him fiercely and said, The so-called improper desire is to do everything you can to get something that doesn't belong to you. If you can't get what you want, it's quite painful. It's better to let go early. It's easy for you to say. Ding Yun suddenly turned his head, and the anger in his enchanting eyes had faded at this moment. Only a faint calmness and faint provocation remained. If it was you, what would you do? Will you obediently give in and live happily ever after? And Mo Yin's eyes hardened. I don't need to answer such hypothetical questions. His JoJo could only belong to him. There were no assumptions. Huh. Ding Yun revealed a mocking smile. To put it bluntly, it's because we're on different sides. That's why you said such heartless words. On the other hand, when Xiaomu leaped into the green vine's encirclement, she was met with a shriveled skeleton's gaping, ugly mouth that was poking straight at her. If it were anyone else, they would naturally be scared to the point of screaming. 6 chapters first, for chapters at night, as usual. Chapter 2140. However, Miss Xiao, who was familiar with medicine and had studied the human body's meridians, didn't feel anything. She only frowned in disgust and waved her hand to destroy the skeleton. It was really trying to steal a chicken, only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. She originally wanted to strengthen herself, but she ended up becoming food for the sapling's fragments. TSK. She really didn't know what to say about this, Madame Zhang. She was happy that things had turned out this way. Her second son was gone, and her daughter had run away. In the future, her husband would marry another wife, and her stepmother would enter the family. Zhang Wuxiang wouldn't have such a good life anymore. However, all of this had nothing to do with Arbor. At this moment, she was slowly pacing in the center of the tree's branches as if she was taking a leisurely stroll. She wasn't worried at all that the sapling's seed clone would suck her into pieces. She raised her hand to touch the vine beside her. It was a familiar feeling, very familiar. No wonder when Madame Zhang took out the seed, the aura it emitted was so strong that it made her heart jump. It turned out that her Qiuqiu was here. Hey, big sister. Suddenly, a small voice came from the side. However, Miss Xiao, who was familiar with medicine and had studied the human body's meridians, didn't feel anything. She only frowned in disgust and waved her hand to destroy the skeleton. This Madame Zhang really tried to steal a chicken, only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. She originally wanted to strengthen herself, but she ended up becoming food for the sapling. TSK. She really didn't know what to say about this, Madame Zhang. She was happy that things had turned out this way. Her second son was gone, and her daughter had run away. In the future, her husband would marry another wife, and her stepmother would enter the family. Zhang Wuxiang wouldn't have such a good life anymore. However, all of this had nothing to do with Arbor. At this moment, she was slowly pacing in the center of the tree's branches as if she was taking a leisurely stroll. She wasn't worried at all that the sapling's seed clone would suck her into pieces. She raised her hand to touch the vine beside her. It was a familiar feeling, very familiar. No wonder when Madame Zhang took out the seed, the aura it emitted was so strong that it made her heart jump. It turned out that her Qiuqiu was here. Hey, big sister. Suddenly, a small voice came from the side. It was soft and weak, sounding a bit ethereal. Arbor suddenly turned around and chased after the source of the sound. She saw a little boy who was about 4 or 5 years old. He had red lips and white teeth and was very cute. He was squatting in the bushes and looking at her with a pair of pitiful watery eyes. Arbor's heart skipped a beat. He quickened his pace and walked towards him. She stopped 10 steps away from him and waved her hands at him. Come. The little boy didn't move. He just looked at her with an expectant and innocent gaze. Come here, sister. A green vine suddenly drilled out of Arbor's sleeve and coiled around the boy's waist with a whoosh. However, she heard the boy cry out in surprise. Like a cannonball, he crashed in her arms. Wah! The little boy fell into her arms with a plop and was about to struggle. However, he found that his 4 limbs were all entangled by the vines. He was like a small silkworm cocoon, completely unable to exert any strength as he was bound by the wooden vines. You want to play dirty with me? Your sister, right? Arbor lightly flicked his head. Do you think you can play me? Woo! The little boy looked at him pitifully and subconsciously stretched out his 2 hands that were as white as fat radishes to cover his forehead. Chapter 2141. Chio. Arbor stroked his little head lovingly. What about you? Don't be naughty, okay? Do you know how uncomfortable I've been during this period of time? Hurry and wake up. The little boy suddenly trembled and curled up. His voice sounded especially fragile. You want me to disappear too? Disappear? Could it be that Chio's seed fragment had already developed a weak intelligence? This was a bit troublesome. Arbor frowned slightly and looked down at the child lying obediently in the crook of her arm. In the depths of his large eyes, there were traces of pitiful moisture. In addition, there was also a hint of distrust. Arbor put him down and squatted in front of him. She raised her hand and stroked his head. When you attacked me in the barrier just now, you didn't use your full strength, right? Previously, she was locked in the defensive barrier by Madame Zhang with a divine weapon. With Chio's ability, he could definitely hit her in one strike, even if he was just a seed fragment. It could be seen that in the depths of his heart, he was unwilling to hurt her at all. Although he retained a faint trace of intelligence, overall, he was still a part of Chio's main body. Sister, if I return to my position, I will disappear. When the child spoke of his sadness, his tears fell. Arbor reached out and pulled his little head into her arms. She stroked him and said, "How can that be? You and the main body are connected and are originally one. After you return to your position, you will just become him, and he will become you. Moreover, we can play together." Arbor straightened his little head and looked at the child in front of her seriously. "Otherwise, I can only find a hole to bury you and let you become a half-baked tree." The little tree blinked pitifully. "What do you mean, half-baked tree? You have lost the strength of your main body. Even if I plant you, after 300 to 500 years, thousands of years, you will only be in the form of a child. You understand, don't you?" Tears welled up in the little boy's eyes. He curled himself into a ball and squatted on the ground. He said pitifully, "Will it hurt to return to my position?" Arbor rolled her eyes at the sky and lifted the child up. "Remove the vines around here. Sister, can you remember my name?" My name is Little too." Arbor, could it be that Chio's seed fragment has more than one piece? Arbor muttered to herself. From his tone, could it be that there's a third, fourth, and fifth? The boy sniffed. "After I return to my position, sister?" Xiao Mu sighed in amusement. "You and Chio are originally one, so sister naturally loves and misses you very much." The boy wiped his tears. "In the future, if you meet Little 3 and the others, if they don't return to their positions, will you kill them?" Xiao Mu was startled and speechlessly shook her head. "Of course not." Then what if I don't return to my position today? I said I will dig a hole and bury you." Arbor flicked him on the head. "Do you think I'm a homicidal maniac? I can hurt anyone, but I will never hurt the people I care about. Chio, you're also one of the people I care about." The little boy's face instantly glowed with vigor and light. He threw himself into Arbor's arms and shouted, "Sister!" Arbor was almost knocked to the ground by him. Chapter 2142. Looking down, she saw that the child's body was emitting rays of lush green light, which slowly flowed into her body. That feeling was unusually warm and made her feel happy and encouraged. Arbor narrowed her eyes and subconsciously reached out to hug the child in her arms, until he dissipated into rays of white light and disappeared into her arms with a smile. When she opened her eyes, Arbor discovered that she had already escaped from the vines. A wisp of lustrous green with spiritual energy slid around her wrist, and her body seemed to be surging with endless power. Arbor's body swayed slightly, and Emolian hurriedly reached out to support her. Seclusion. Arbor spat out these words with difficulty. At this moment, the little fellow felt that the spiritual energy in her body was surging, and she could barely form a proper sentence. Emolian immediately panicked and hurriedly reached out to pick her up, flying out of Shantian City. The urgent matter at hand was to find a quiet place for the little girl to cultivate in seclusion. Otherwise, if the spiritual energy rampaged in her body, it would easily affect her body. Ding Yun's gaze darkened as he watched the two fly away. He frowned and glanced at them, then turned to look at shopkeeper Chio, who was standing solemnly beside him. Shopkeeper Chio quivered and glanced at the bare walls of his shop. He said with a sullen face, "Master, I'll go buy a new batch of goods now." That girl was too much of a scammer, emptying their shop in an instant. "No need." Ding Yun waved his hand disapprovingly. "We were going to move the shop in the first place. Sort out the accounts for the past few years, and I'll send someone to collect them in a few days." Shopkeeper Chio was taken aback, then nodded repeatedly. "Prepare to go to the Divine Continent with Ba Shan." But old madam." Ding Yun glanced at him indifferently. "It's fine. If Mother has thought it through, she'll go herself. We just have to take care of our own matters." Shopkeeper Chio knew that the knot in the hearts of the mother and son was very heavy, so he didn't try to persuade them any further. He nodded and said, "All right, young master. This old man will make some preparations in the next few days and go ahead first." Ding Yun nodded and didn't say anything further. He turned around and strode out of the door before looking up at the distant sky that was like jade water, and his gaze was gloomy and difficult to understand as he glanced deeply at it. "Jojo, even if you don't remember anything, it doesn't matter." So, the guard only saw a black light flash past his eyes. When he rubbed his eyes and looked again, all he saw was a blue sky and white clouds. There was nothing there. Lien carried Arbor and quickly came to the forest outside the city. He found a place with an open field of vision and placed her on the ground. He waved his hand and set up a defensive barrier. Arbor closed his eyes and sank into his star domain. His spiritual sense, Avatar, turned into a speck of light. Just as it sank into his dantian, he saw that the saplings seemed to have been injected with a quickening agent. Branches were growing horizontally from the trunk, and green leaves were also growing densely. Arbor was very happy to see this. He stared at his Chio without blinking. His spiritual sense, Avatar, jumped under the tree and circled around it. He clasped his hands behind his back and looked up at the branches and leaves at the top of the tree. The sapling grew strong and healthy in an instant. This was officially entering the growth stage. Arbor was overjoyed. She felt the spiritual power in his body skyrocket. So he hurriedly closed his eyes and directed the spiritual power in his body to the spirit meridian without any distractions. For a moment, the wind and clouds surged and the weather changed abruptly. Chapter 2143. All the spiritual energy gathered above Arbor's head, forming a small whirlpool. Layer by layer, it absorbed all the surrounding spiritual energy into her body. The spirit division record had broken through to the 7th level, and her spiritual meridians had formed a 7th branch. Xiaomu closed her eyes and looked inside herself. She gazed at the new tiny branch meridian that had appeared in her meridians. Spiritual energy trickled into this newly formed weak branch meridian. So, other than her main meridians, she had 7 more spirit meridians than others. What did this mean? In other words, Arbor's spiritual energy was 7 to 8 times more than others at the same level. The entire mountain forest exploded with a strong light. Lien, who was standing beside her and watching her level up, couldn't help but sigh helplessly. With such a huge commotion, not to mention running out of the city, even if they ran deep into the mountains and forests, they would probably be discovered by many cultivators. Sigh, how monstrous was his Jojo? Lien's eyes were smiling. He stood beside Arbor and watched his little wife attentively. In the mountain forest, a cool breeze blew through his robes. Little Seven's figure suddenly appeared beside Lien. "Don't let anyone near here." "Yes, master." Yanqi suddenly rose into the air and turned into a golden light. He suddenly turned into a dragon and flew above the two of them. With a roar, he flew towards the practitioners coming from all directions. Holy shit, a dragon. What's going on? This mountain forest is the main road to Shuntian Prefecture. Why would a dragon appear out of nowhere? Roar. 7th Yen roared and charged toward the cultivators who were running toward them on the official road. Those people were so scared that they threw away their helmets and armor. They hurriedly turned around and ran for their lives. "Oh my god! Sacred beast! It's actually an ancient sacred dragon. Oh my god! Run quickly!" sacred beast that was a powerful existence recorded in ancient books. Who had seen it with their own eyes? Ha ha, they were lucky enough to see it today. Seeing everyone running over in a sorry state from afar, the other cultivators who were rushing over naturally didn't dare to say anything more. They quickly followed the crowd and ran away. What a joke. If they had to pay with their lives just to watch the show, who would dare to do so? Everyone hurriedly fled in all directions. Another burst of intense light erupted from the mountain forest, and Xiao Mu's cultivation exploded from level 5 spiritual cultivator to level 6 spiritual cultivator. She could even see her spiritual sense avatar inside her dantian, shaking its small hands and feet as if it were convulsing, dancing with joy. Sigh, he wasn't calm at all. How could he be as calm as her? If this spiritual sense body was released, wouldn't it be a funny existence in the eyes of others? It was too embarrassing for her. Emolian raised her head to take a look. The ground around her was slowly sinking due to the vibrations caused by the spiritual aura. The trees next to her were falling down one after another with creaking sounds. His wife's advancement this time was too fierce. Emolian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. With a wave of her hand, a jade communication talisman appeared in her hand. Ji Chun, 10 li outside of the city, Jojo is advancing. Take some people and stop all the people who are rushing over here. Looking at the situation, it would take a few days for his little wife to advance. Prince Imo calmed himself down and found a stone stool to sit beside his wife. Separated by the transparent defensive barrier, his eyes were fixated on her body. What should she do? She had only just advanced in the spiritual realm, and she had already caused such a big commotion. Chapter 2144. In the future, if she were to ascend to the immortal realm, she would have to go through the 5 spirits reincarnation trial. Who knew? If the heavenly Tao would be furious and kill this little demon in front of her. Emolian supported her chin with her hand and tilted her head slightly as she stared intently at the little girl. At this moment, it was as if the wind had stopped. Everything around them seemed to turn illusory, and time seemed to be frozen here in his phoenix eyes. In his line of sight, there was only her. 7 days later, the little girl opened her slightly dazed eyes and jumped up. She immediately saw a handsome man outside the defensive barrier, his green robes fluttering in the wind and a slight smile on his lips. Lien. With a wave of his finger, Lien removed the defensive boundary around her and teleported to her front. He stretched out his arms and pulled her tightly into his embrace. Sighing softly, he raised his palm to caress her a few times. My Jojo, your husband has missed you so much. The little girl moved her head in his water and extended a small fist. She clenched it and cheered. Lien, I feel like my entire body is filled with great power. TSK, TSK. Little fellow, you've ascended 3 levels in a single bound. Of course you're filled with great power now. Ji Chun sighed softly. The two of them looked back and saw Ji Chun, little Tai Sui, Dao Wuji, and the others slowly walking over. Arbor hurriedly checked her cultivation, and her eyes immediately lit up. I've ascended. Emolian couldn't help but laugh. You've been in seclusion for 7 days. It's not as simple as ascending. Your spiritual sense has also grown quite a bit. Arbor looked again and nodded. I've become a 7th-ranked spirit master. My spiritual sense has also grown quite a bit. Most importantly, she had broken through to the 7th level of the soul chapter. Now she could cultivate her 7th branch meridian. At this moment, she felt that her body was filled with spiritual power and was very powerful. Emolian looked at her with a gentle gaze and nodded. This ascension went quite smoothly. Let's go back first. Arbor grunted and turned to look at Ji Chun and the others. Why is everyone here? How can we not come? You've caused such a big commotion and attracted many people to investigate. Fortunately, we acted in time and helped you block all those random people. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to live such a peaceful life these past 7 days. Arbor nodded in realization. Thank you for your help. Let's go back first. With a wave of his hand, he brought out several vigorous horses from Paradise Planet. He used it as a means of transportation. Everyone wanted to return to the city in a low-key manner so that they wouldn't attract too much attention while riding the dragon and phoenix. Who would have thought that this group of men and women would be eye-catching to begin with? As a result, when they entered the city, they attracted the attention of many young men and women. With the city gate completely blocked off, Emollien's party ultimately had no choice but to abandon their horses and scurry onto the roofs, fleeing in defeat by leaping onto eaves and vaulting over walls. When they returned to the inn, everyone saw that Hu Jinshin's sleeves had been pulled off by two young ladies who were like wolves and tigers. They couldn't help but point at him and laugh loudly. Miss Chow was baffled. What were those people doing on the street just now? The corner of Emollien's mouth twitched secretly. As he spoke, he lifted his sleeve to wipe Emollien's cheek. That aunt just now spoke so loudly and looked so agitated. Her saliva almost sprayed on your face. So dirty. Did you hear what she said clearly? Everyone. Chapter 21:45. Jojo, you don't know why they're chasing us. Dao Wuji felt that there was a need to discuss this issue with his sister-in-law. He kept feeling that Boss seemed to be very bitter about chasing his wife from afar. Arbor glanced askance at him and gazed at him with "Are you an idiot?" expression. How could I not know? They're chasing me because they want to rob me, of course. Everyone. Emollien couldn't help but facepalm. She suddenly recalled the incident with the fourth princess. It was the same trick with different people, but the little fellow always thought that they were chasing her for the sake of robbing her. That was why she beat up the fourth princess, Emo Shuang, back then. Ha ha ha. So shouldn't those passers-by thank themselves that they were actually weaklings that Jojo couldn't be bothered to lay a hand on them? Isn't it because we're beautiful? The peony fairy couldn't resist teasing. Arbor blinked and turned to look at Emollien. He asked with a frown, just like how Emo Shuang chased after eldest Qin back then, and like how a flock of orioles and swallows chased after Omega Kotoku. She recalled that when she first applied to enter the Qin estate, she also encountered a bunch of mentally abnormal people who chased after Omega Kotoku and screamed crazily. They were simply sick. This type of person is sick, Arbor said expressionlessly. According to the liver meridian, depression or sudden mental stimulation are abnormal emotional problems. The liver meridian will block meridian qi, and ultimately, the virus will invade the entire body. Everyone puffed. Ha! Everyone laughed like idiots, but they still looked at Prince Emo sympathetically. Brother, you've worked hard. It wasn't easy chasing after the crown princess, right? That he must have accumulated several lifetimes' worth of good fortune to be able to chase the stoic face home. The little stoic's train of thought was truly amazing. In her opinion, the reason why she chased after the beautiful men was because she was mentally stimulated, her liver was blocked, and she was in pain. Everyone laughed so hard that their teeth were visible. The little stoic was expressionless. She didn't know what was so funny. As a result, the group of people laughed and laughed, but when they saw the stoic face above them, they inexplicably couldn't continue laughing. Arbor glanced at Hu Jiechin and the others, then silently turned around and walked upstairs. Follow me. Everyone rubbed their noses speechlessly, nodded, and followed her to the second floor. After entering the room, Arbor turned to Emollien and said, "Husband." Emollien nodded knowingly. A layer of defensive enchantment fell down and covered the entire room. Little Tai Sui then flicked its finger to reinforce the defensive barrier on top of it. Hence, Qiaomu had the sapling drag everyone inside. As soon as they entered Paradise Planet, Arbor didn't have time to explain anything to everyone. Arbor's eyes lit up as he rushed toward the little treant. That's right, Chocho had consumed the profound spirit jade for a long time and absorbed the entire spirit realm on the island. 7 days ago, it had fused with the seed fragment and finally awakened. Furthermore, it had entered the early stages of growth. The little treant also waved its branches and excitedly ran towards its master. The adorable little treant widened its round, bean-like eyes and tears were about to flow out. It raised its arms and ran towards Arbor while shouting, "Master, Master, I want a hug." Smack! A smack landed on the little Trent's head. Chio tilted its head in bewilderment and looked at its little master. After not seeing him for so long, shouldn't Master be hugging and kissing him? Chapter 2146. Why did this scene feel completely different from what he had imagined? Chio thought that Master would definitely hug Chio happily after not seeing him for so long. Not to mention kissing him, but at least caressing him a little. What the hell was going on? Why was he beaten up by Master? Woo-woo. The little tree ant waved his branches and scurried away. Arbor chased after him for a few steps. "Don't run. Who told you to act on your own? Stop right there." Xiaomu leaped up and landed in front of the tree ant Chio, her small face looking at him in a huff. "Master." Chio called her weakly and subconsciously took 2 steps back. He said pitifully, "Chio is confident that I can recover on my own." "Confident my ass." Arbor glared at a certain tree and asked angrily, "Let me ask you, what were you thinking at that time? Did you think that by sacrificing a little, you could fulfill my wish? If something really happened to you, how could I live with peace of mind for the rest of my life? Do you want me to die of regret, anger, and resentment?" When Xiaomu recalled how she had helplessly watched this tree turn into withered branches and withered leaves in front of her back then, she was so angry that she could not vent her anger. She had really panicked then. This damn tree actually didn't tell her anything and directly acted on its own initiative. Chio had a stuttering expression on his face. His black bean-like eyes darted around, not daring to look at Arbor. After a long while, he finally admitted his mistake with an honest expression. He muttered to himself and said softly, "Master, Chio knows his mistake. Master, don't be angry. Come here." Arbor roared at him. The little Tran had the urge to run back, but in the end, he braced himself and moved to Arbor's side. Arbor looked at him helplessly, sighed, and picked him up. Flicking a few tender leaves on his head, Arbor said softly, "Chio, don't be so impulsive in the future. If there's anything in the future, discuss it with me first. Don't act on your own." Chio naturally nodded his head 101,000 times. However, in the depths of his heart, he was still very determined. If little Master is in danger, of course Chio will use all means to protect her. Besides, girls are so troublesome. He was at his wit's end now that she was crying to him. Arbor looked at the tree in his arms expressionlessly. "What are you thinking about?" His expression was strange. It didn't seem like he was thinking of anything good. Chio, who was in a fugue state, quickly regained his senses, his black eyes rolling around the tree trunk. He suddenly acted cute and changed the topic stiffly. Master Silver, do you know? Ever since our paradise planet was promoted to a spirit realm, the spirit realm has become a spirit realm. The production of spirit tea will double. I collect tea every half a month. I've already accumulated a lot of spirit tea. Master, do you want Chio to brew some tea? Master, would you like some tea? He forcefully changed the topic. Arbor looked down at him speechlessly, shook his head, and patted his tree head. Chio, I want you to promise me that you'll be good in the future. The little tree revealed a very touched expression and said, "Don't worry, Master, Chio will definitely be very good." Arbor touched his leaves and looked him up and down. "Have you entered the growth stage now?" Yes. Chapter 2147. Chio nodded furiously, a happy expression on its tree-like face. "Master Silver, isn't Chio very good? Chio has officially entered the early stage of growth." Arbor nodded and looked around. Before she had entered, she had already felt that Paradise Planet, Fish Orchid Planet, and Chuyin Planet had all expanded quite a bit. Now that she had entered Paradise Planet, it was indeed so. Chio, let's go take a look at the 100 Herb Garden." "Okay." Arbor waved at Mo Lien and the others. "I'll go pick some things in the herb garden first. You guys play for a while." Mo Lien nodded slightly, indicating that she understood. As for Dao Wuji and the others, they had already run off somewhere with curious expressions. I don't want to go out anymore. It'll be great to stay here and cultivate in seclusion, Peony Fairy said with a soft sigh as she flicked her slender fingernails seductively. Big sister, little sister has the same intention, Ginkgo Fairy hurriedly said. When they had entered, they had felt a dense wave of spirit energy rush towards them. Thinking that Yang Shiron and the others had found a place with an extremely fast flow of time and excellent feng shui for cultivation, they had really hit the jackpot. Their realms would definitely soar during this period of time, right? Ginkgo Fairy also looked forward to it. There were many mundane matters outside, but they didn't have to care about anything here. How great would that be? The little fellow had already run back with a face full of excitement, holding a bunch of herbs in his hand. Hearing the sister's words, he hurriedly shook his head and said, "With your cultivation, I'm afraid there's not much use for you to cultivate here. At the very least, the spirit domain had to be promoted to the God realm. Only then would it be suitable for people above the spirit supreme realm like them to cultivate. It's fine. The main thing is that it's quiet." Ginkgo Fairy giggled, her gaze fixed on the herbs in her hand. Finished picking, Arbor nodded, then ran to Emolien's side and said happily, "My herb garden has more than doubled in size, and there are more fields. I had Little Tree collect all the herbs I bought from Lianyuan Medicine Store." Qiuqiu was indeed a very hard-working child, helping her organize the medicinal herbs by category. Apart from the low-grade medicinal herbs that were not planted, there were many types of medicinal herbs from mid-grade to saint-grade medicinal herbs in the herb garden. However, there was also a lot of empty space. If they encountered any rare herbs in the future, they could continue to plant them. Just now, when she looked at the flourishing appearance of the entire medicinal garden, she was in a very happy mood. Seeing her happy expression, Emolien was also very happy. She raised her hand to hold her little hand and said with a smile, "Do you still want to go to the beach to take a look?" Arbor shook his head. "Let's not disturb Second Martial Ant and the others' cultivation. Let's go out." After everyone came out of Paradise Planet, they ate some food before returning to their rooms to rest. Emolien saw her take out the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron and knew that she was about to start concocting pills. She stood up and said, "Remember not to stay up too late." Arbor nodded and watched him leave. He tilted his head and was just about to start refining the spirit-gathering pill when the door to the room was pushed open. "Chow Chow." Fairy Yellow Crane hurriedly stepped through the door. "Where did you go? Have you eaten?" Arbor had washed his hands clean and was about to start when he saw Yellow Crane Fairy come in. He could not help but ask curiously. "I went to the streets to ask around and ate a little," Yellow Crane Fairy said dejectedly. "I didn't expect everything to go smoothly in the main residence. It's as if nothing happened at all." Chapter 2148. Chasing her own disciple through the night and killing 2 maidservants. Such a big matter, yet there was not the slightest bit of news. Fairy Yellow Crane said dejectedly, "She's really amazing, smoothing out everything." Hearing this, Arbor couldn't help but raise her hand to pat her head. "Yellow Crane, don't be discouraged." After a pause, she looked at her seriously and asked, "But your master, she's doomed to self-destruction for doing evil. If there comes a day when I want to find trouble with her." Fairy Yellow Crane drooped her head and sighed softly. "I know." Arbor walked in front of her and pulled her to sit down. "There's something you probably don't know yet. The reason why there are corpse puppets running rampant in the world is not a coincidence, but someone deliberately did it. The organization behind all this is called Heavenly Fate. The brainless people in the organization may be spread all over the world." Arbor held Yellow Crane's hand and said, "What we can confirm now is, your master, Fengshe and Shuntian Prefecture's Prefecture Lord, Gung Pengcheng, are all members of Heavenly Fate. However, the current Shuntian Prefecture's Prefecture Lord, Gung Pengcheng, has already been replaced by our people." Yellow Crane listened silently and suddenly widened her eyes. "Ah, Prefecture Lord Gung? He's one of you." The little fellow nodded her little head proudly. There's no longer any prefecture Lord Gung in the world. That old fellow. Thinking about how that dog still wanted to trick her even in death and refused to reveal the name of the mastermind behind the Mu family, Arbor couldn't help but frown slightly. Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord is one of us now. His name is Dunji. Arbor said, I'll inform you that if you see this prefecture lord's strange actions in the future, you don't have to make a fuss. Fairy Yellow Crane silently closed her gaping mouth, feeling that this matter was rather miraculous. Jojo and the others were really resourceful people. They could even deal with Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord. Then does my master know? She doesn't know. Arbor shook her head, then pondered for a moment and said, Actually, I can't be sure. Maybe your master is a clever person and has already seen through all of this. It's not impossible. Huang He nodded and said indifferently, Yes, she's indeed intelligent. Then he smiled bitterly. Even my disciple doesn't know what she's thinking in the depths of her heart. How could she be so ruthless as to turn her own disciple into a strange corpse puppet? Huang He, maybe she wants to make you stronger so that she can use you? Fairy Yellow Crane was stunned for a moment before nodding. That was indeed what she said back then. She even said that senior sister was useless. However, she had single-handedly controlled senior sister Lingfei and turned her into a monster. How could she blame senior sister Lingfei for being useless? What kind of logic is this? Arbor sneered, the Heavenly Fate cult has always been dedicated to researching drugs that can change the human body. In the beginning, this medicine only worked on corpses. Now it can even work on living bodies. This shows that it has improved a lot. Fairy Yellow Crane's body trembled slightly. I still don't quite understand. It's simple. This improved medicine is spread by the nightcaw birds. Once the human body touches it, it will automatically enter your bones and blood. From the beginning of the mutation of corpses to the current mutation of living bodies, it's all for one purpose, to give birth to powerhouses with special abilities. Succeed or die trying. Arbor's grip on Huang He's hand tightened slightly. Chapter 2149. This kind of medicine can make the human body stronger. Once it's eliminated, it'll turn into a monster that's neither human nor ghost. Madame Fang's words kept echoing in Fairy Yellow He's ears. Only now did she come to a realization. Her voice trembled as she asked, Teach this? This is a 50-50 chance? How can there be a 50-50 chance of success? Look at how many zombies there are in the world. How many special ability users can there be? So, the chance is actually only 1 in 10. Fairy Yellow He asked in shock and anger. 1 in 10? I'm afraid that's overestimating it. Arbor sighed. He understood why Fairy Yellow He was so angry. Her master, who was so close to her, was sending her disciple to her death for this 1 in 10 chance. This kind of feeling was very terrible. Fairy Yellow He silently lowered her head and laughed bitterly. Sure enough, if you're not ruthless, you can't achieve great things. Arbor held her hand. Everything is in the past. But what I want to tell you is that Tianyun and I can't coexist. So one day, we'll definitely go to war with your master. And that day was probably coming soon. Fairy Yellow He raised her head and looked at her with a determined gaze. Madame Feng is no longer my master. That night, she cut off our master-disciple relationship with her own hands. How can I still acknowledge someone who wants to kill me as my master? Fairy Yellow He said softly. I can't do it. Don't worry, Jojo. I won't be a burden to our team. When it comes to my firm stance, I won't miss a single point. Arbor pursed his lips and nodded. He patted Fairy Yellow He's shoulder lightly and said in a relaxed tone, I'm going to refine the spirit-gathering pill. Do you want to watch from the side? Yes. When she was downstairs, she had heard Fairy Ginkgo mention that Xiao Xiao was refining pills upstairs. That was why she had hurriedly rushed up. She couldn't miss such a good opportunity to watch him refine pills. Jojo, you can refine black-level pills now? Arbor nodded. Yes, I can occasionally refine a few earth-level pills. But it's not very stable. Wow, Fairy Yellow Crane had an expression of worship on her face. She hurriedly stood up, walked to her side, and circled around the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron. I am now a black-grade alchemist. Jojo, what about you? Since you can refine earth-grade medicinal pills, then you must be an earth-grade alchemist. I don't know, Arbor said with a confused face. I can only refine a few earth-level pills from time to time. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. They can only be considered as profound-level pills. Huang He stopped in his tracks, blinking as he stared at her, and asked, could it be that you've never gone to the pill house to appraise your alchemist rank? Arbor shook his head in confusion. Do I need to appraise it? Huang He's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he stammered. Of course, we have to appraise it. If you don't appraise it, how would the world know that Shun Tian Prefecture has another Earth-grade alchemist? After the appraisal, even if I go to the upper 3 prefectures in the future, I could get a 50% discount when I go to the pill house to buy medicinal herbs. Why didn't you say so earlier? Arbor patted his chest with a pained expression. Previously, I went to the medicine shop on the street to buy a lot of medicinal herbs. Lotus flowers cost tens of millions of spirit coins. Huang He, when we alchemists go to the pill house to buy things, the higher the rank of the alchemist, the greater the discount. You didn't know? Chapter 2151. She would definitely know in the future that JoJo's today was full of mysteries. All right, hurry up and eat. Rest early after eating. Arbor held up her bowl and called out to everyone. She had been in seclusion for a few days, so she needed a good rest. Nightfall. Arbor turned over on the bed and subconsciously reached out to hug Mo Lien, who was lying beside her. But when she hugged nothing, she woke up with a start, blinking her large eyes in the dark. Miss Chow wrinkled her small nose and rubbed her eyes. She pulled the corner of the blanket and sat up. The room was very quiet. Where did that guy Mo Lien go in the middle of the night? He left his wife behind and ran off by himself. Miss Chow wrinkled her small face in displeasure and jumped off the bed barefoot. Her expression was somewhat dazed as she looked at the pitch-black night. Don't! A small pebble wrapped in a small piece of paper was suddenly thrown in from the window and rolled to Arbor's side. Arbor squatted down to pick it up. There were only 2 lines of small characters written on it, and only a few words, "Follow me, Yi Ling Min." Arbor slightly raised her eyebrows. Yi Ling Min, this girl, still dared to come in front of her to make her presence known? Thinking of this, she put on an emerald green outer garment, tidied up her clothes, and casually tied her hair into a loose bun. With a whoosh, she shot out of the window. At the same time, Mo Lien was standing outside Shuntian City. Her handsome face was cold as she stared at 3 or 4 black-clothed men kneeling in front of her with one knee on the ground. Your Highness, His Majesty has already issued 7 secret orders. He has ordered people from the Forest Guard to come and bring Your Highness back. Tong's expression was somewhat fearful as he spoke. This subordinate doesn't know what to do. The Forest Guard Captain Fong Su is an extremely old-fashioned person. He takes His Majesty's orders as his priority. Once he receives the order, he will definitely spare no effort to capture Your Highness. Emolian was silent as she stared at him. What's the hurry? Once this matter is over, I will naturally leave. Then, how should I reply to Captain Fong? Just tell him that it will take at most half a month. Emolian paused for a moment. About 20 days. Don't worry, I will go back. He still had to go back and cause trouble for the great emperor of the divine land. The old man nagged him every day, asking him to go back, go back, go back. Then he would let him have his way. Tong inexplicably shook his small body. He felt that the crown prince's gaze was very strange. What should he do? It was as if she wasn't going back to spend time with the great emperor. Instead, she was going there to cause trouble. That's enough. Mo Lien waved her hand. You guys go and stabilize the Greenwood guards. As for the future, I will deal with it myself. Yes, Your Highness. They received the order and quickly disappeared into the night. Mo Lien looked up at the pitch-black night sky and harumphed lightly. Old man, I wonder if you're prepared for bad luck. Mo Lien turned and left, leaving only a wisp of cool breeze scattered under the stars in the dark night. When he returned to the inn's side room and walked into the room, he was slightly startled. He hurried to the bedside to take a look, and his handsome face immediately changed. His wife was missing? Don don bang, bang. Hu Shurchun opened his sleepy eyes in a daze. Before he could speak, he felt his collar being pulled up. Where's Jojo? Hu Shurchun, what's wrong with you? You're sleeping in the middle of the night and asking me for my wife. You didn't steal her. Steal your sister. Hu Shurchun looked at him speechlessly. Chapter 21:52. He forcefully pushed his 5 fingers away and smoothed out the creases on his clothes. Big brother, shouldn't you be looking for where your wife went missing now? When I left, Jojo was still sleeping very soundly. He-chun was speechless. Can't she sleep until the middle of the night? Suddenly wake up? Mo Lien frowned. Where could she have gone? Yuan Shurchun rolled her eyes and slowly took out a green vine from her sleeve. Sapling, where did your master go? The little tree did not respond. He-chun waved at Mo Lien, who looked upset. Give me some fire, come. Whoosh. A purple flame lit up between Mo Lien's fingers. Just as he got close to the vine, he heard Chiochio squeak. Take it away. Annoying. Stinky fire. Buffed. He-chun reached out to touch the little tree's vine. Are you willing to tell me now? You're extorting a confession, Chiochio said angrily. I won't tell you even if I die. I won't hesitate to go through a mountain of swords or a sea of fire for my master. It's just a little fire. It won't scare me. Wah wah wah. Take it away. Take it away. So annoying. Isn't that holy fire? It hated holy lightning the most in its life, followed by holy fire. Annoying, annoying, annoying. What if it burns my beautiful skin? Master, sob, sob, sob. These 2 men are forcing me. Sob, 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 sob. I'll tell Master. Chiochio cried pitifully. You're bullying me when Master isn't here. He-chun smiled very gently. Chiochio, are you going to tell me now? Sob, sob, sob. I won't submit to force. Chiochio wasn't born to be afraid of death. It's so itchy. Don't burn Chiochio. A vine twisted in He-chun's hand and said, You stop. Annoying. Master has been lured away by Yi Lingmin. Mo Lien's expression immediately turned ugly. She flicked the vine with her finger. Where did you go? Chiochio was being so secretive and unwilling to say anything. He felt that there was something fishy going on. Strange. Ma Yingchen chuckled and opened her fan. She blinked and said, I advise you to be honest. Otherwise, I'll throw you into the manure pit later. Chiochio immediately wilted. When these 2 unscrupulous people got together, they could think of anything. Master Silver went to the spring house. What? The 2 men yelled at him. What kind of lousy name was that? It didn't sound like a good place at all. Chiochio didn't dare to make a sound after being yelled at. It silently lit a candle for its little master in its heart. Let's just say that running around with Yi Lingmin in the middle of the night, instead of sleeping, was really an unwise move. She went in now. Chiochio had only pretended to be dead for a short while, when Mo Lien picked it up and gave it a light swing. You can choose. Tell me now, or I'll roast you first. Woo. Master Silver. This man's terrifying true colors had been exposed. Seeing that Prince Mo was about to act impatiently, Chiochio hurriedly said, She's at the door. She's at the door. Crown Prince, if you don't hurry over now, who knows? Wow, this spring house is so bustling. There's so many pretty boys inside. TSK. Wow, the male Silver at the door, welcoming our little Master Silver, is so beautiful. Prince Mo! Exclamation point. He-chun. Chapter 21:53. Shut up. Mo Lien gripped the vine tightly. Wah, don't break me. This is a vine clone that I painstakingly cultivated. Whoosh. Prince Mo threw away the noisy vine and went out the window. The corners of Ma Shurchun's mouth twitched. She reached out to take the vine and caressed it. Chochio, if you dare to leak the news, haha. Chochio felt a chill run down his spine. Master Ma Shurchin, I'm already asleep. Good night. Chochio greeted the venerable peach blossom immortal obediently and then fell silent. The latter found it funny. Seeing that Chochio was tactful, he didn't continue. He hurriedly opened the door and left quickly with Emolien. Arbor didn't know that Emolien and Ma Shurchin had already found out about her escape in the middle of the night. Along the way, she followed Yi Lingmin's graceful back view and chased after her. She turned a corner and chased into a bustling street filled with the fragrance of cosmetics. Xiaomu also did not expect that while she was chasing after them, red lanterns were hung high on this street, and there were many young ladies and young men standing at the entrance. It looked like business was very good. Arbor didn't chase after Yi Lingmin with all her might. Seeing that she seemed to have lured her here, she couldn't help but feel curious. She thought of what Yi Lingmin had said earlier. Whoosh! Yi Lingmin's shadow suddenly jumped onto a wall and disappeared behind the tall brothel. Xiaomu trotted up the steps and chased after him for a few steps before suddenly stopping. They saw a man in a white robe with a delicate and pretty face. He was like a noble young master that was free from dust under the snow. He was talking cheerfully and wittily, and he was smiling with his eyes narrowed as he invited a few covetous men to enter and have some fun. Arbor was expressionless. Ah, a young lady is here. The men at the entrance were all dressed to the nines. That's right, it's just plain flowers of all colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and purple. Xiaomu didn't look sideways as she trotted to the white robe man's side. She peeked at him before walking inside without saying a word. Hey! A fiery red feather fan suddenly blocked Arbor's path. The first thing that entered his eyes was a fair and tender left leg. She was wearing a fiery red short jacket, which revealed her white leg in a very fashionable fashion. What a strange outfit. Seriously. It stung me eyes. Arbor! Exclamation point. Aya, little girl, do your parents know that you've come to our spring house for a stroll? Arbor glanced at the man in red. His taste in clothes was so much worse than rotten peach blossoms that her looks were not bad, but it was a pity that she was painted like a flirtatious slut. She felt dizzy just looking at him. Everyone didn't know that in the little stoic's eyes, this row of red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, and purple had automatically been replaced with green peacock, scarlet chicken, yellow lantern grass, blue phoenix flower, and other exotic medicinal herbs and beasts. She automatically filtered out these men out of habit. Tap, tap, tap. She bypassed the man in red and continued to stride inside. Everyone couldn't help but be astonished. The man in blue hastily blocked her path again. Little girl, we're asking you a question. Did you come with an adult? We're operating a legitimate business. If you come out to play without an adult's knowledge, don't let someone come and smash our brothel. So long-winded. Jojo reprimanded in displeasure. Chapter 2154. A plump landlord walked over from the side and cast a sidelong glance at the little girl. He stuck out his big belly and laughed heartily. You haven't even grown all your hair yet, yet you dare to seek pleasure. Ha ha ha! Nothing is too strange these days. After saying that, he took out a handful of spirit coins, about 20 to 30 of them, and tossed them to the white-robed man beside him. He looked at the green-robed man lecherously and said, Green, let's go. Aya, landlord who? You're joking again, aren't you? I'm on the spring house's 10 great handsome men. After saying the first half of his words, the green-robed man's handsome face darkened, and he snorted. Those 20 to 30 spirit coins aren't even enough to treat me to a cup of tea. Slut! The landlord was humiliated, and he angrily stormed inside with a flick of his sleeves. What a joke! He had spent 20 to 30 spirit coins. At the very least, he could find a slightly low-end handsome man to touch. Arbor looked at the landlord who walked in, then looked at the smiling white-robed man beside him. He suddenly raised his hand, took out a large bag of spirit coins from his pocket, and directly stuffed it into the white-robed man's hand. Wow, That green-robed man immediately surrounded him, wanting to inspect the bag of spirit coins. The white-robed man pressed down on his hand and said softly with a chuckle, "Xiao Lu, don't be rude." Then he turned to Arbor and said, "Miss, please come inside." As expected, one had to pay to enter. The little stoic nodded pensively and walked towards the House of Spring. Bah, a young lady actually doesn't learn the good things and imitates those trashy people to horn men. When Xiaomu heard the sound, she turned around and saw a red-painted and green-painted old procuress standing in front of her red apricot house. She was currently in front of her red apricot house, snacking on melon seeds as she started cursing. Arbor was baffled. He didn't feel like paying attention to this old fellow and stepped into the spring house. At this time, two plain-clothed men were performing a dance on a stage on the first floor of the house that a crowd of idiots surrounded the stage and repeatedly cheered. From time to time, someone would toss spirit coins onto the stage. Xiaomu instantly creased her brows. Those people had completely blocked the road ahead. She still had to go to the second floor to take a look. "Little girl, would you like to order a green sign later?" The green-clothed man changed his previous attitude of disdain and ridicule towards the landlord and followed Arbor like a little bird. "Scram! Don't pretend to be pitiful." The man in blue hurriedly pushed him away and said to Arbor with a smile, "Point at me. Point at me. I'm called Lanning." Arbor looked at them expressionlessly. At this moment, the dance on the stage stopped, eliciting cheers and thunderous applause from the audience. Someone shouted, "Wow, young Master Songphone is here." Everyone quickly turned around and looked at the 8 handsome men beside Arbor in a dazed red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and white. Hee. Arbor stepped forward. From time to time, a group of handsome young men's cries of surprise could be heard. Such a young female guest came to our house. She seems to have facial paralysis. She doesn't have any expression. Wow, she was escorted in by young Master Songphone and the 7 handsome men. I wonder what her background is. She looks so delicate. Turn around. A woman with a square face angrily turned her male companion's face back. "What are you looking at? What's there to see?" Chapter 2155. Of course, the little girl was pretty. As soon as she entered the room, she attracted the attention of many people. Arbor didn't pay attention to other people's expressions. She glanced around the hall and suddenly saw Yi Lingmin's figure in front of the railing on the second floor. "Halt!" Xiao Mu was enraged. She gave up a good sleep and walked around with this woman for a long time. She still didn't know what she wanted to do. Arbor flew forward and frowned when she saw a group of people blocking the way. She lowered her head and rummaged through her pocket. She took out a large handful of spirit coins and threw them all at the corner. As a result, the scene immediately became chaotic. Everyone cried out in alarm and rushed toward the spirit coins on the ground. A path was cleared in front of her. Arbor's figure flashed and went to the second floor. She kicked open a door without saying anything. Fuck, it stung her eyes. When she kicked open the door, she saw a woman in a red doo-doo standing in the room and turning around with a small leather whip. The woman was petrified when she saw her. Arbor was also petrified when she saw the woman. There was a pitiful little beautiful man crying in the corner of the bed. He was looking at her with pitiful eyes like a puppy begging for pity. That white-robed man, the young Sir Songphone that everyone spoke of as peerlessly handsome, hastily walked up. His mouth twitched inwardly as he dragged Xiao Mu out and closed the door behind him. "Fan Ming, Fan Yu, accompany this little girl to sit in the wing room." "Yes, young master." Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple walked out. They were very good-looking, but Jojo couldn't remember them. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple stared at the 2 men with jealousy. Green Peacock shouted angrily, "Young master, I don't agree. Every time there's a good thing, you always entrust it to Fan Ming and Fan Yu. Are they raised by a mother and we are born by a concubine?" Young Master Songphone glanced at him and said, "Little Green, you talk too much." Green Peacock stopped talking. He suppressed the anger in his heart and glared at Fan Ming and Fan Yu. Arbor frowned. He wanted to refuse. Why would he enter a room and sit down? But now that he thought about it, he wondered if these people knew Yi Lingmin. That fellow must have lured her here for a reason. As soon as they entered the room, Fan Ming and Fan Yu washed their hands and burned incense. One of them boiled some fragrant tea for her, while the other took a zither and sat down. Arbor waved his hand. Don't bother. All of you sit down. Don't do anything. The two of them looked at each other and obediently sat down in front of the little stoic. Let me ask you too. Have you heard of Yi Lingmin's name? The two of them looked confused and shook their heads at the same time. Arbor frowned and asked, You've never heard of it? Miss, this Miss Yi Lingmin you're looking for, could she be one of our guests? But the guests usually don't reveal their names to us. Arbor glanced at the two of them. Fan Ming hurriedly said, Miss, do you want to drink wine or tea? No need. It was the middle of the night, and they were drinking tea. Did they still want to go home and sleep? Senseless. Could it be that Yi Lingmin had nothing better to do and was toying with her? Arbor stood up in a huff. Go home. Miss, wait. Fan Yu stood up in a panic and hastily ran to block the door. He looked at her pleadingly. Miss, could you please wait for 5 minutes before leaving? Chapter 2156. If Miss leaves now, Fan Ming and I will be regarded as inconsiderate guests. We'll be blacklisted by the brothel, and we'll be severely punished. Arbor blinked, took out a bag of spirit coins from his pocket, and threw it at them. You just want money, right? All right, get out of the way. Fan Yu stood pitifully by the door, hugging the bag of spirit coins without saying a word, and his head hung low. Hello. Arbor put his two little paws behind his back and tilted his head to look at her. She saw that kid raise his head, and his eyes were full of pitiful tears. He looked like he was bullied by her, but also a bit humiliated. Thinking of her impatient attitude when she spoke before, it seemed that she was indeed a bit disrespectful. Arbor coughed lightly, walked to the table, and sat down. He said expressionlessly, all right. Serve a tea. Leave after the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. This restaurant was really baffling. It actually had such a strange rule that customers had to stay here for the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. Could it be that customers couldn't leave if the tea wasn't good? Instead of focusing on the quality of the dishes, they had to resort to unorthodox methods. For example, setting up an erotic dance stage in the lobby. What was the point of that? Fan Yu smiled through his tears and happily came forward to wash his hands and make tea for him. Fan Ming began to play the zither for him. After the song ended, Arbor glanced at him. He seemed to play well, but she had always liked to listen to fast-paced music. This kind of slow music sounded like a lullaby, and the more she listened to it, the more she wanted to sleep that alas. Thinking about how he had to waste his good sleep time like this, Jojo felt a bit of heartache. What did you play just now? Darling Xiao's face was expressionless. Fan Ming covered her mouth with her sleeve and secretly chuckled. This little customer in front of him was really strange. Usually, the customers who pretended to be elegant in their restaurant would pretend to be very knowledgeable, even if they didn't understand the tune he played. But this little girl asked what tune it was with a calm expression, not at all thinking that she would be ridiculed if she asked. This is young Master Songfeng's new tune from the ancient tune of yearning. Miss Qiao's expression was calm, as if she had never heard of lovesickness before. She replied with an, oh, and didn't continue the conversation. Fan Yu handed her a cup of hot tea and asked with a smile, do you want some snacks? Why are you eating snacks in the middle of the night? Arbor glanced at Fan Yu expressionlessly. As soon as the little fellow stopped talking, the atmosphere in the room fell silent. However, the two of them were used to visiting brothels and were used to seeing all kinds of guests. They were used to adjusting the atmosphere, so they weren't afraid of the little fellow's stoic face. As Fan Yu brewed the tea, she chatted with Arbor in a good mood. Miss, isn't yearning too nice? It's a so-so, Arbor said faintly. It's not as refreshing as Golden Spear tune. His decadent voice made her feel a little drowsy. Refreshing? Little girl, are you sure you're not here to make fun of me? Yearning tune expresses the strong feelings between a man and a woman, and the whole tune is lingering with faint sadness. It's about a female general falling in love with a young master from a scholarly family, but it's hard for her to express her love. The female general went around in circles, but before she could express her feelings, she was sent to the battlefield by the great king. She returned from the battlefield, and that young master committed suicide for love. Chapter 21:57. Arbor glanced at Fanyu. It's hard to confess your love. Yes, it's obvious that you like him very much, but you're stubbornly refusing to confess. Arbor looked at him thoughtfully. Then, what if you feel very happy when you see someone? Fanyu was startled, then smiled. Ah, the little girl has someone she likes. Arbor nodded vigorously. I didn't jump out from a crack in a rock. Of course I have someone I like. Fanyu chuckled and nodded. Then have you confessed to him? Confessed? Arbor thought for a moment and shook his head. Every time, Prince Imo would say to him, Jojo, I like you. Then he would naturally say, Me too. This shouldn't be considered a confession. Arbor blinked. Is there still a need to confess? Fanyu and Fanmeng leaned closer to her and nodded. Of course there's a need to confess. Since you like him, you have to confess. If you don't confess, how can you let the other party know that you like him? Yes, yes, yes. Not only do you have to confess, many girls will personally sew something they like and give it to the other party. Yes, yes. The tone of the conversation changed, inexplicably becoming cheerful at Arbor, however, didn't realize it. He thought about their words and nodded. What you said makes some sense. But what do girls usually give? I embroidered a lotus for him in the past, and he liked it very much. Arbor turned to look at Fanmeng. What do you give your lover? Fanmeng covered her mouth and chuckled. Naturally, I'll give him whatever he likes. Arbor looked up at the ceiling and thought hard. He's never said that he likes anything in particular. He likes everything I give him. Why don't I plant a lotus for him? Fanmeng. Fanyu couldn't help but want to laugh. This was the most interesting girl he had met in a long time. Since he likes everything, then there's no need to give him anything. Arbor nodded. I think so too. At this point, the awkward atmosphere between the three of them had become much more harmonious. Fanyu and Fanmeng helped her think of a solution, such as how to confess to Prince Imo and how to present it to him. Unknowingly, half an hour had passed. As for the crown prince, who had angrily gone to the House of Spring to capture his wife, not long after he and Shichun ran onto the street, they encountered a small group of assassins. The other party had come in a hurry, and there were only 20 or so people in total. All of them were 10th level spirit realm experts. Even in Shuntian Prefecture, this was not a small force. However, to Mo Lien and He-chun, it was clearly too weak. The assassins came quickly, but so did Tong and the others. Within a few minutes, there was no need for Mo Lien to personally take action. Tong led a group of secret guards and took care of these small flies in a matter of minutes. Mo Lien stood there gloomily. He-chun couldn't help but laugh. It's the middle of the night, and you're being assassinated the moment you go out on the street. I'm afraid that the other party isn't joking, right? If this was not a joke, then what was it? Just a few kittens, what could they do? Master, please punish us. Tong led a group of people and knelt on one knee in front of Mo Lien with some fear and trepidation. Prince Imo waved his hand and said, You may leave. Yes, it looks like they planted spies around you. A small action in the middle of the night attracted assassins. He-chun smiled faintly. However, this person obviously doesn't have enough brains. Chapter 21:58. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent these small fries to assassinate him. No matter what, they had to transfer over 1,000 people. Otherwise, how could they surround and kill the crown prince? Oh, Lien glared at that guy. This damn guy looked like he wanted to see the world in chaos. Hateful. It's not bad that he could come out in the middle of the night and transfer so many people in a hurry, Mo Lien said indifferently. Oh, it seems that you already know who made a move against you. Now, he's still in Shuntian Prefecture, coincidentally has a grudge with me, and his brain isn't very bright. Who else could it be? That heir of giant pain, Wong family. He-chun blinked. Imo, what's his name again? Imo Kun. Imo Lien said indifferently. Oh. Hichin nodded and looked at him with a playful expression. In your Mo family, other than you, is there anyone else with a slightly higher IQ? Imo Lien snorted and turned to look at him. Of course there is. Hichin made an N sound. Imo Lien didn't say anything else. With a frown, his figure flashed, and he headed toward the House of Spring not far away. Just as the two walked into the House of Spring's lobby, they attracted the gasps of the crowd. Heavens! House of Spring is indeed Shuntian Prefecture's #1 brothel. Look, 2 more peerless beauties have come. Wow, they're better looking than the 10 great handsome men in the brothel. Yes, among the 10 great handsome men, only young Master Songfeng can compare to them. Not good enough. Imo Lien's gaze swept across the lobby and saw a group of fools drooling at him and Ichun. The 2 men's faces darkened, and a trace of annoyance flitted through their hearts at the same time. In this hall, not only were there fat men, there were also many women. Beside them sat delicate and weak officials to keep them company. They were drinking wine, playing music, and singing. If the 2 didn't suddenly appear at the door, the music wouldn't have stopped. Imo Lien's handsome face completely revealed a dark expression that this little guy really had guts. She dared to barge into such a lousy place. Io, where did this little beauty come from? Come and give me a hug. A fat official wearing a scholar's hat walked towards Imo Lien with a jug of wine in his hand. However, before he could approach, Crown Prince Imo swatted him away with a black face with a flick of his sleeve. He heavily hit the corner of the table, then bounced off the table and fell to the ground. He groaned in pain while holding his waist. You, why did you hit me? Imo Lien's eyes sharpened, and a trace of fire suddenly ignited between her fingers. Wow. Spirit Master. The fat squire was so frightened that he cried out in alarm. He scrambled backwards and cupped his hands to beg for mercy. Young Master, please spare my life. This lowly one has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive me. Imo Lien coldly glanced at him, and the crimson flame in her hand slowly calmed down. Ichin clicked his tongue and asked cheerfully, Have you seen a little girl with a stoic face? Everyone saw that the 2 of them didn't come with good intentions, so they didn't dare to provoke them. They hurriedly nodded and talked at the same time. Yes. She went upstairs with Fan Meng and Fan Yu. Yes. Fan Meng and Fan Yu are greeting the little girl. What the hell were Fan Meng and Fan Yu? The 2 men looked at each other. A trace of danger flashed across Imo Lien's deep phoenix eyes. Hichin wanted to laugh and spread his hands helplessly. This little guy is courting death. Chapter 2159. Spring filled the room. A rich wine aroma slowly wafted through the room. Fan Meng's slender fingers appeared as tender as spring onions under the lantern light. Arbor didn't pay attention to the wine he poured and held his teacup pensively. From their meaning, they were going to take the initiative to confess to Lien. Would he be happy if Miss Chiao blinked her eyes? How could he understand her feelings if he didn't confess? Was it like this? But in the past, when she didn't say anything to him, he was able to understand her in a second. In that case, it looked like there wasn't much difference whether she said it or not. Gurgle. Fan Yu filled Miss Chiao's teacup with hot water. She propped up her chin with one hand and squinted at the little girl in front of her. It was very strange. In this kind of bustling city, it was as if the little girl was sitting by the lakeside and enjoying the scenery. Her body was untainted by dust, and her stoic face was expressionless. She really was a good-looking little girl. She wondered what kind of person the man she liked would be. He should be very blissful. Bang! The sudden sound of the door being kicked open, accompanied by the startled cries of a flock of orioles and swallows, instantly broke the tranquility and elegance of the room. Many handsome young men who didn't mind the commotion rushed over and shouted all at once. Aya, you scared this baby to death. General Jia is showing off his might. Wow, it's Shuntian Prefecture's Tiger Pendant Camp's General Jia. He looks so mighty. It's that pretty little stoic. Tiske, I don't know why, but when I see this stoic face, I suddenly have a feeling that my heart is moved. Go shit yourself. Which outstanding person isn't moved when you see one? So hateful. I'll slap you to death if you talk like that. Miss Chiao put down her teacup with a bang and abruptly stood up with a slap on the table. A green vine swiftly darted out of her sleeve and abruptly whipped the person's chest. Wah! Cries came from the surroundings. They saw that Tiger Pendant Camp's General Jia was sent flying by the little stoic's whip. He crashed into the opposite room with a bang and directly smashed the door. Wah wah. The little stoic is mighty. This little girl with a stoic face is really good at martial arts. A crowd of clowns stood on both sides of the doorway, cheering, clapping, and waving flags at Arbor. The little girl felt a headache coming on. She really didn't know what was wrong with Yi Lingmin to bring her to such a messy place. Young Master Song Feng is here. Quickly move aside. Young Master Song Feng is here. The noise of the crowd could be heard outside the door. As the two groups of people retreated, Arbor raised her head and saw the man who had been flirtatious and smiling at the entrance walking towards her. Along the way, they were accompanied by laughter that sounded like background music. While everyone was grinning from ear to ear, the little stoic's expressionless face somehow felt especially comical. Aya, what happened? Next to young Master Song Feng, the handsome man in red with half of his thigh exposed and his snow-white skin was using his sleeve to cover his chin and mouth. He was staring at them with great interest. At this time, someone had already helped General Jia up. This General Jia, who looked very formidable with his unshaven beard, was a bit funny now. It wasn't a glorious thing to be thrown out of the door for picking a fight that under everyone's watchful eyes, such a big guy was sent flying with a single slap. How shameful! Chapter 2160. General Jia's face was bruised and swollen, and his expression was also very displeased. He glared at Xiao Mu with bulging tiger-like eyes as he panted heavily, unable to say anything for quite a while. General Jia is angry. Will the little stoic suffer a loss? Suffer a loss? You must be joking. Have you ever seen the little stoic suffer a loss since just now? Everyone. Indeed, they hadn't. They had only seen this stoic face toss people out very intimately. They really hadn't seen her suffer a loss before. Young Master Song Feng glanced speechlessly at General Jia and coughed lightly. General Jia, what are you doing? General Jia glowered and pointed at Arbor as he shouted, This little girl, what right does she have to sit on my fan meng and fan you? Ugh, this general is so angry. He, the Grand General of Shuntian Prefecture's Peng Tiger Battalion, actually didn't call for his top hostess to serve him when he came here to drink with prostitutes. What right did a little girl who hadn't even grown out her hair yet have to invite two great beauties? Arbor. Everyone's eyelids twitched when they saw her withdraw a beam of lush green with spirit energy from her hand. Stop, 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 stop. The man in fiery red clothes hastily reached out to stop her from exerting force. Don't smash it. This building can't withstand two smashes from you. Fan Meng, who finally had a pleasant chat with Miss Chiao, hastily stepped forward and said, General Jia, this is our young master's arrangement. Would you like to come another day? Why should I come another day? So long-winded. Arbor impatiently glanced at the middle-aged general, and the spirit energy in her hand surged. She was already very angry. Just as she was about to toss this so-called general down the building, she caught sight of Yi Lingmin standing outside the crowd in men's clothing out of the corner of her eye. Yi Lingmin, stop right there. Arbor shouted angrily and turned around, abandoning everyone. He flew out of the crowd with a whoosh and swiftly chased after Yi Lingmin. Ah, little girl, Fan Meng exclaimed. However, the little girl was like a wisp of smoke, instantly moving away from their eyes. Young Master Song Feng frowned slightly. Just as he was about to follow them, he saw two bodyguards with bruised noses and swollen faces running up the stairs and crying pitifully. Young Master, it's bad, it's bad. There were two fiends outside. He fought his way up. The red-clothed man rolled his eyes speechlessly. What's wrong with you today? Why are all kinds of people here? As he spoke, everyone felt their eyes light up. Two slender figures quickly floated in front of them. The Crown Prince's face turned even darker when he saw all kinds of beautiful men on the second floor. The Yuan Shurchin couldn't help but burst into laughter. She turned her head and looked around. "Call your person in charge out." "Yo, young masters, do you want to join the spring house?" A middle-aged woman in the crowd couldn't help but tease. Mo Yin's severe gaze swept over, instantly stifling that woman's shrill laughter into her throat. The scene was instantly dead silent. Young Master Song Feng leisurely walked out of the crowd and glanced at the two people with a smile. "That's me. Do you have any advice for me, young masters?" Yuan Shurchen sized up this charming young master in white from head to toe, then silently glanced at the black-faced prince and hand over the little stoic. So he came to find the little stoic girl. Realization dawned on everyone. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.